practically every one of the top 40 records being played on every radio station in the United States is a communication to the children to take a trip, to cop out, to groove. The psychedelic jackets on the record albums have their own hidden symbols and messages, as well as all the lyrics of all the pop rock songs. And they all sing the same refrain. It's fun.
This is a special request. We don't want you to smoke genetically modified ganja. We want you to smoke the real thing. We want you to smoke the natural herb. Some call it marijuana, some call it sensimedia, some call it lamb's bread, and some people call it ganja.
Welcome to another episode of the Adam Dunn Show. I am your host, Adam Dunn. Got nobody sitting next to me today. Our co-host, Mitch Shanasa, is still at home, taking care of his beautiful new baby, Farron Hacker. Going to have an interesting life with the middle name Hacker going in there, but maybe destined for a new career. We're going to be joined in the studio today by some hashy guys. We're going to have Nikka T in the studio and Jibs, both winners of legendary contests, which can't really kind of say the name, it's so legendary. Also on the phone, we're going to have Bubble Man from BC, from Bubble Bags, also another legendary guy out there. And we're going to do a little hash episode on that. That's the second half of the show. We'll do a little hash history and a little bit of, where this whole industry is going. Part of it's a lot of it we have a lot of people doing dry sieve and water hash specifically, so we're kind of going for the solventless episode, though we'll touch, I'm sure, about everything because people want to know. Also, we're going to have a little call-in with Reverend Bud Green. He is the presidential candidate for 2016 going up against Hillary, and he is obviously, with a name like Bud Green, going very pro-cannabis. So we'll have him on the line soon, and that should definitely be interesting. I love to see people taking risks like that, because that's part of the deal is someone's got to do it, and it ain't cheap to run for president. I know that. So we're going to find out how he's managing to pull that all off. And we're going to give a little update on what's going on. It's kind of a crazy time period right now. We're getting into the planting season for hemp now, so this weekend, we have a special edition of Hands on Hemp down in Springfield, down here south in Colorado, where we'll be planting Ryan Loflin's farm. He's already working hard at it right now, so we won't have to do all the work, trying to kill us down there. But we're going to get to plant some seeds, plant some plants, group up together beginning of the season. And the idea of the Hands on Hemp this year is that it's going to just keep on going, because I have a feeling once people get down there, you got to kind of, it's a dedication. It's a 5.5 hour drive from Denver, so you definitely want to stay overnight, camp out. And I have a feeling once people get the camping fever going on, like some people just don't want to leave it. They just, that's it. They're there for the season. So yeah, that's going to be this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if you guys have any time on your hands and you want to get your hands dirty, literal Hands on Hemp episode, this one will be pretty interesting. It's going to be historic, I should say, more than interesting. An historic event, which we last year got to harvest it. It was pretty awesome. And now this year we're going to make sure we tighten up these rows and make sure everything. This is like literally the show grow of the year, because the idea is get 10 acres this year. And next year everybody can start going buck wild and growing massive amounts. But this year it's like, let's just get like nice looking fields going, and we'll actually do a better statement that way. So let's see. Let me go through. I went through the news this morning just to double check, since I figured I'd be by myself today, so I have to wing this one a little harder. And pretty much what I noticed was that all the news is just like one state after another going for it. New York, Florida, all these big states too, the ones that are like game changers in my opinion. Because once Florida kicks in, that's going to be a very, very popular destination for a lot of people, because, Cali's always had the weather and the cannabis and the whole vibe. And Florida definitely had the weather, but as far as cannabis goes, they had it. It just was not so cheap and real hard to find. But now I think that should balance it out there too, because, they've always had such a heavier cocaine problem and crack problem and pill problem, and Florida definitely needs a little love there, and I think that will be, especially when all the oxy problems they have and stuff like that. So I think down the road could be the best thing for them. Let's see. And then I noticed that New York was approving medical cannabis. So, I mean, and I think New York's going to go quickly to recreational because, I mean, they were talking some crazy numbers too, like 10 centers for the entire state, and you start thinking about just New York City on its own needs 100, you know what I mean? Because I don't know how big they're planning on growing these things, but definitely better to have lots and lots of smaller gardens than it is to try to go with just like 10 big ones. Because what happens when you get, powdery mildew or some massive wipeout in one of those places? Could be bad. Let's see. Wiz Khalifa got arrested in Texas. You probably heard about that, right? And then he was doing selfies in jail. So, I mean, they obviously didn't really, it wasn't too hardcore. When you were able to do selfies in jail, you didn't really get treated too bad because obviously they let you keep your phone in the first place, right? And then last week we had Jane West on, and I guess that haul went out without a hitch and went really, really nice. I saw it online and I saw it on TV, and it was definitely presented really well. But I also noticed that they're already posting like, "Don't bring your cannabis to Red Rocks." Like they're trying to like backpedal on that one because of I think it's just because of the name cannabis in the name. You know what I mean? Like once you put the name cannabis out there, it definitely rings a few bells that maybe don't necessarily need to be rung. so hopefully that all works out well. I mean, again, you're not supposed to bring cannabis to Red Rocks ever, really, are you? And I don't think I've ever been to a show where people weren't indulging a little bit somewhere. There we go. And let's see, what else did we have? Anything else exciting? We had the Colorado Cannabis Summit. That was pretty interesting. I went to that the other day. I was at the NCIA meeting over at the Expo Center. It was interesting because I was on the panel there, but I got to see really like a lot of newbies. I'd say 80% people in that room were fresh, like into the industry, and they don't really know the direction that they're going 100%, or maybe they think they do. But I noticed I'd say 50% of those will be complete failures off the front end, just from experience. And it was kind of interesting. I mean, I was sitting on a panel with people who were experts in the field. Uh-oh. What is going on here? Uh-oh. Hold on. That's the wife trying to Skype me from Sweden, so you never know. We have to get her on the air. I'm surprised she's not listening. She should know. All right. So, we got a call coming in. Welcome to the Adam Dunn Show. Who am I talking with?
Hi there. This is Kim.
Hey, how you doing?
Howdy. I noticed that 2 weeks ago, Mother Jones reported that the price of brickweed in Mexico side has dropped from $100 to $25, and the crime rate in Denver continues to go down. So take that, Mayor Hancock.
Oh, for sure. No, I mean, that's the thing is once you just let it go, it usually finds its own way to balance out. That's one of the. I saw that too with the 52% reduction in murder here, which is never a problem. We definitely want to lower any kind of murder rates, that's for sure. But actually, it's interesting. When I lived in Amsterdam, I used the same campaign idea because when I moved there, which was in '89, they had approximately 0 murders that year, actually. So it was pretty crime-free when it came to it. It had 0 murders, and they had 450 coffee shops. And then Washington, D.C. on that same year had 450 murders and 0 coffee shops. So we used that as a sort of sliding scale to show people, like, maybe better to smoke than to get smoked. That was our way of putting it. Thanks for the caller for that one. And
Alrighty.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for listening. So, it's definitely nice to see that things kind of pan out in the long run. I think this whole hemp experiment this year is going to be really awesome, too, because we have been afraid of this thing for so long. And now we have a chance to, grow these in this year. It's going to be, like I said, 10 acres at a time, not huge, massive scale like we're going to be doing. But compared to what we were doing, it's pretty massive because 10 acres compared to 0 acres, or, last year was 60 acres of area, but there wasn't quite 60 acres of hemp growing because it was all patchy. But this year, like I said, just good, nice rows, and 0 kind of negative coming out of it, I'm sure, because, like I said, just like corn, people have picked corn off the side of the road, not realizing it was for cattle feed many times, and they don't ever go back and grab corn again because why would you? It doesn't taste good. So kind of the same with the hemp. I mean, people, there of course will be scattered incidences because people don't know the difference, but there's ditchweed growing all over Nebraska and all over Kansas and Midwest everywhere, and people who live around it, they do not get excited about it every year, even though for the average, for somebody else who hasn't never seen it or is driving through, they might just totally mistaken it because it definitely looks pretty much exactly the same. So let's see. The other news I saw was pretty much, now it's South Carolina is talking about CBD only bill. Again, these are bad ideas, people. If that's the direction that your local municipalities are sort of going for, then you definitely want to make sure it's a point that they understand that that's the wrong direction. And I actually have a feeling that it's going to come out in the wash pretty soon because all of this real scientific hemp oil, RSHO, it's kind of unraveling in a sense as far as, they're figuring out that it's not just, there is 14% CBD in there, but what else is in there? So it's, so you kind of want to, trust your source from the beginning. And that definitely helps in this industry because we definitely don't like, charlatans and snake oil salesmen and things like that. So we're trying to get that out of our industry as fast as we can. And I think it is definitely shaking itself out. So, of course, our in-studio guys are late. That's what happens when you get Hash guys on the air. It's definitely some late possibilities rolling in. But my first guy that I would like to call, I'm going to wait and give it another 15 minutes or so because I told him I call him around noon, would be Reverend Bud Green. Now, this isn't the first time. I think he's actually run for. We'll get all the details because I definitely not the best fact checker, but I'm pretty sure he's actually done this before. And people always are like saying that if you're not 100% sure you're going to win, then you're kind of ruining it for the next guy. Well, that is slightly true to a point, but at the same time, when we don't have any choices, that's when it starts to get scary. And to be quite honest, at this point in time, with the right message and the right backing and everything, he has a better chance than in the last few elections. And with the momentum that this industry has got right now, and the amount of states that are coming on board, it's because it's a national thing. Presidential election is not it's definitely not where you are. You have to kind of appeal to the whole country. And what's CC and Nick are on from Sweden? There they are. Yeah, they forgot about the show. I think the timing wise. So yes, my lovely wife CC and baby are safely in Sweden at the moment and listening to the show and on the chats. That's cool to hear. And the somebody
asked if if Dixie uses RSHO in its products.
I'm not going to blast anybody online or on tell what I don't 100% know. I'm pretty sure they were using RSHO in their products. I know that they were trying to keep up with the production, and that's one of the things I think people always steered towards because of the fact that they were afraid they're going to lose, be able not to have enough product in the house. And the problem with the RSHO that's coming out of China and stuff is that, yes, it is testing really sort of, sometimes it tests exactly where you want it on the numbers, but the results aren't quite as strong, and it's definitely not as intense, and it's part of that whole entourage effect that we talk about on the show, which is, the combination of your CBN, CBD, CBG, all these different things working in conjunction, and not just CBD. And that's why we definitely push for a non-CBD only sort of angle, because it's definitely not the way to go. And a lot of times with illnesses or with plant nutrition or with pesticides or any of these kind of things, it's like a three-pronged technique usually works, because a lot of times one thing does not 100% work every time, and a lot of times these things are able to adapt quickly, So if you are hitting something with one thing and thinking that's going to work, well, probably your body will just sort of adapt to it and say, you know what, try something new, try something better. But the yeah, I think that's going to be the real kind of dividing point right now in the next few months is this whole CBD rush that everybody's doing. But we have actually found so many good strains lately, and there's thousands more on the horizon because of people now reworking. We had Mike West on the show, and he had some great stuff. I mean, he had some all high CBD strains, and we're growing them out now, so we'll see. But he said he was hitting 20s on almost all of them. So for that to become a consistent thing where you can hit 20s on CBD, then there's no real reason to import cheaper RSHO to compensate, because at the end of the day, quality is what you really want, Cream rises, that's how I always, and that's one of the things about this industry I've always said is it's nothing to be afraid of as long as you understand that your quality, you just keep your quality, just always go for the best, you know what I mean? Always work on your best quality that you can, and it will rise, and you will, you'll be victorious. In my opinion, that's just some personal opinion on that one. So, let's give a shout to Reverend Bud Green. I think he'll be ready enough. I did say I was going to call him ahead, but I called him an hour ago. He should be fine. And we're going to have him here this weekend. He'll be at Hands on Hemp. It's one of the reasons I wanted to get him on the show. So if you guys are interested in what he's doing, you can know that he'll be here in Colorado this weekend and hanging out with us down in Springfield and making things happen.
Hello?
Hello there. Is this Mr. Bud Green?
Yep. How you doing, buddy?
How are you doing? This is Adam from the Adam Dunn Show. You are live on the air. I just want to make sure you know that.
Great.
And I'm sure you have no problems being live since you are a presidential candidate, as we have just announced. And when did you announce this officially?
Well, I guess you're like one of the first people because I've been... You might have the scoop there because I've been talking about it for a while, but definitely going to run. And one thing we're also planning on doing, besides running for president, is trying to start a new marijuana-themed party.
Nice.
I think I'm calling it the Pot Party. So something that people can get behind, not just the running for president, but also a whole thing of a third party I think is needed as well because obviously Democrats, Republicans don't serve the purpose of anybody anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And, well, I mean, And like I was saying earlier, the momentum right now is perfect timing to sort of get this going. We have over 20 states. Basically, I think everybody had always said 20 states, and then that's the tipping point, and then we can start to really push forward, which is where we're definitely at right now, and if not even further.
No, exactly. I mean, hopefully within a few years, every state, I assume even the red states, I think eventually will come around and legalize marijuana. It's momentum is unbelievable. It's something that's going forward that really can't be stopped, I don't think.
Yeah, for sure. And where are you from originally? What's your hometown?
California, Monrovia, California.
Okay.
So from Southern Cal.
Exactly. You have to emphasize so that I always notice that when. If you don't emphasize, it's a big state, and there's definitely different ways of thinking north and south a little bit, for sure.
No, exactly. The fact I'm kind of a radical person is usually more rare from Southern California, but it's just the way it worked out. Yeah.
And so, and one of the things about running for president, which everybody obviously knows, is that it's really expensive, isn't it? It's one of those, no matter how you do it, even if you do it as grassroots as possible, it still gets to a situation where it's like a paintball game, If you don't have enough money, you're not going to win because the other guys have so much more ammo. You know what I mean? You're trying
that's it, exactly.
Sniper them out.
Once you get out there as a real candidate, I believe money will start to get raised because it's amazing. Over the years, even some of these smaller candidates have raised a lot of money. Ron Paul, for example, raised millions upon millions, and so the money's out there to be raised. Just got to get it done. Look at Obama. Nobody knew who he was when he first ran. He still raised over $1 billion.
Yeah, no, and and I mean the awesome part of this whole thing is that the fact that it's not like we're all rich. That's by no means true. But at least our industry is growing literally, and it is there is philanthropists out there who I think will get behind you once this starts to roll, because
yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking too. And even with Obama, he raised so much money, but a lot of it wasn't. People just pulled it together. You really can't. As a presidential run, I don't think you can raise more than $1,000 from any one person. So
right, so you just had
for him to raise $1 billion means a lot of people gave $20, $40 or something. It's just
Sure.
amazing how it all adds up when you add it together.
Yeah, and are you going to be, like, for instance, are you going to be doing like the Seattle Hemp Fest and stuff like that? Are you going to be raising?
Yeah, I should have been out there. I didn't get a chance to come out for your thing in Colorado. That's when I was originally going to announce.
Yeah.
But I should be able to make it for the Seattle thing. And then we're trying to plan a few things to get the word out there. Planning infomercial type thing as well is what we're thinking, to get the word out there. Because as powerful as the internet is, I think TV is still very powerful as well. So
For
trying
sure.
to think about
For sure.
putting an infomercial on, like, these late night things you see every night, these pushing books or whatever, instead they'll be pushing a presidential run. So
Yeah, no, and it's I think also what you notice too is obviously everybody's so internet based right now, and that's pretty much how most people communicate. But you have to really be active on it. You can't just and when people do like just blast you with stuff online, it's more annoying than not. Whereas on TV, you subject yourself to it. You're like, okay, I am not going to even touch anything. I'm just going to sit here and it's going to to blast me. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I think that's where the subliminal information gets.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And the thing is that, again, the internet is incredibly powerful, and I think TV is still out there, obviously, doing a good job. It's just that the regular media, and I've worked in the regular media before, I've been a TV producer before, and I know that the way they think is that unless it's out there in the regular TV media, they tend to ignore it. And that's
Sure.
one problem with the internet, is the regular lamestream media, as Sarah Palin calls them, ignore a lot of things. So
Right.
by getting it on TV, that means they can't really ignore it. And then when they start to pay attention to it is when you've got them. They always rip on it, like look at what they're doing right now with the marijuana movement.
Yeah.
They're finding isolated incidents, the people cooking up the hash and blowing up an apartment or whatever, and
Oh,
they
of
make
course.
a big deal about it. But that just shows you that once they're talking about it, there's no going backwards. I mean, they're trying to find things to rip on it with, but still the momentum's getting bigger and bigger, so they're having at least to talk about it, even though they're using their little slant like they always do.
Yeah, no, and that's the funny thing too, is when sometimes they get caught in their own little schemes because they're out trying to blast us, and at the end of the day, they just make more people interested in what's going on.
Exactly. That's what I've always found, because from the beginning when I've been out there, I've been doing TV since the mid to late 80s, and I would always get ripped in the beginning, but people would always, you talk to people later, yeah, I appreciate you going on TV. So there's an audience out there that they want to think they serve, but the audience is much bigger, people who really respect you when you go on the regular shows. And I can just go by my own experiences. By the time I had been on a lot of shows by the mid-90s, I was getting applause instead of being booed, because once you get out there and get your message out there,
Yeah.
people eventually respond, and that's just the way things are. That's how you can tell the marijuana thing's gotten so big, because when it started in the 80s, people just, the idea of legalizing marijuana was just, oh my God, it could never happen. And now the momentum is just intractable. There's just no way they're going to stop it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes me happy to be part of this whole time period too, because when I was growing up, I mean, I know that there was a few moments in time where, yeah, we thought, I mean, I can't say we because I was like a little kid, but as a society, we actually thought we were there. You know what I mean? There was during Carter, he pretty much.
Yeah, going back to exactly, good point.
He put it out.
Jimmy Carter, when he really decriminalizing marijuana.
And that really had the
it's
vibe.
just around the corner, and that was in the late 70s. So it takes more than just being around the corner. You got to make it happen.
Yeah, no, it shows you quickly also how fast it can spin back the other way too, which is one of the reasons that this whole industry, it's important. I think that's why internet's really important, because it kind of communicates to everybody at the same time, so we don't have to.
Yeah, they can't filter the message that way.
Yeah, the
that's
lag
exactly
time is, because that's the other interesting thing back in the day is there was so much like spin thrown on everything, and average person doesn't realize it, but I mean pretty much everything has always been filtered, and there's always been sort of a person who's able to manipulate it a little bit, and coincidentally enough, they tend to be the people that are closely connected with the people that are running for president, or the people who are doing this. So they have their control of the media from day one, and that's...
Yeah, look at Obama. He's done a very good job of controlling the media. And the other thing that they've done, the politicians, is they've led the people to believe they're going to do something. Back when Clinton was first elected, I had a radio program where I had Jack Herrera on, Dennis Perone, and Chris Conrad, and they were all saying, it's right around the corner. Clinton's going to get it legalized. He doesn't talk about it because he can't do anything in the election, but after he's elected, he's going to do it.
And he was the
same
worst
thing we heard about Obama, and they don't do squat. That's why I'm running for president, because you can't depend on the politicians. They just won't have enough balls to do anything in the end.
Yeah, that's the funny part, too, is like everybody, I mean, obviously now it seems like everything is so pro-cannabis, but at the same time, if you look at the numbers, it actually doesn't really reflect that. Like, there's still more, more people being arrested. And I mean, obviously...
No, exactly, yeah. You would think that the anti-drug war thing had never happened. It's just it's business as usual.
Sure.
And the people are so opposed to it, but the politicians don't care because the money comes from the other angle. There's still the powerful interests that don't want to legalize, the alcohol lobby, cigarette lobby, people like that don't want to legalize. So that's where the money comes from them. So that's why we have to pool our money to get our own message out there, because they're not going to do it for us. I mean, that's the whole thing. You cannot rely on the Democratic, Republican, what's the word I like to use? The Republicrats. You can't rely on one or the other.
Right. Well,
they're gonna cozy up and act like they're going to do something like Ron Paul's kid, Rand Paul, is out there acting like he's going to legalize drugs and stuff, but it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
They'll throw the word out there just to get your money and your vote, but they won't ever do anything in the end.
Well, it's a classic story of like, they just don't have quite enough time to actually pull it off. So they talk about it, then you have to, the cozy, you get to cozy in a little bit, and then obviously nothing's going to happen right off the bat. And then by the time by the time that anything, people kind of forgotten what their first promises were.
Exactly. Like what they would think it was going to happen was like with the gay marriage situation. Obama was not for gay marriage when he ran, and then since he got in there, he was supporting gay marriage. So that's kind of the thing with marijuana.
Yeah,
no. We'll do like he did with gay marriage, but that just shows you how controversial it still is for politicians. He went out and supported gay marriage, but he still couldn't support legalizing marijuana. It's just amazing that they have no balls or anything. They just don't have the courage to get out there and do something, because gay marriage would probably be more objectionable than marijuana to most people. Yet they did the gay marriage thing because of the factor that a lot of money comes from that community
and that
the politicians.
And that came in really fast, and it was kind of interesting. There was a great meme here when that all happened, because it was right at the exact same time so it was like cannabis becomes legal, gay marriage becomes legal, and they had a meme where it said like they just legalized gay marijuana in Colorado or something like that. It was pretty good. But it was the reality was it was kind of the way I looked at it was almost like they threw everybody a bone at that time. You know what I mean? It was
exactly. That's kind of what it is. Again, the bone was bigger for the gay marriage because at least they did something, and they will not support the legalization.
Right.
When push comes to shove, when California had it on the ballot, they all ripped on it. Even Governor Brown, people like that, would not support it. So that's the height of hypocrisy when people have used the drug themselves and have never had a problem with it, still won't be voting for legalization at any point.
Yeah,
and that's where we're at.
You also have the extra sort of media circus of California to add to the whole fire too. You have a broke state that can't pull its ass out, its head out of its ass when it comes to like money, and you're like looking at it like, wait a minute, don't you guys have like the biggest, agricultural economy, and don't you have all of this to backing you, but somehow you can't manage the cash, So, and it's again, I think it comes to the North South, and the South blames the North blames the South, and everybody drags each other down in a weird way. So, it's kind of like that. If California could ever organize itself to get to that point where, because the problem I see is that the North definitely does not want legal cannabis because that's where they make all their money, and the South, they'll do it because it's easy. They just rather have it easy, and convenient. I guess.
That's a good point, because you would think the North would be more for it, but you're right. There's still the entrenched interests that don't want it legal.
No, exactly, and it's really. I mean, I know from my friends that live there that none of them supported it at all. You know what I mean? They just saw money going out the door, really. And it's a shame because now what's happened is those same people, they thought they were holding on to something, and now their cannabis is worth just as little as anybody else's. You know what I mean? So it's
good point.
It doesn't even matter how good they grow it. It's like $800 a pound on the mountain. You know what I mean? So and those glory days for those people are over, and now they don't have the legal backup to sort of know that at least they can diversify a little bit. I figure if you're a really good grower, you can figure something out. You know what I mean? That's part of being who you are, is figuring out what the next guy might be able to do and do it a little easier. So, but some people don't get that. They just want to grow.
No, exactly. A very good point. And the thing is, that's why I'm appealing to the growers and people like that to support my candidacy, because, again, it will never be legal unless we do it this way. And the one good thing about the marijuana being illegal is that it shows you the government's corrupt.
Right.
So I fear one thing is if it was legal every state, then people would be like, oh, great, the government's okay. Well, there's still so much the government is corrupt with that merely legalizing marijuana alone won't change what's really going on in this country.
Well,
so in that regard, maybe it's better it's illegal because then people have to fight it and say, hey, not only this is corrupt, but also a lot of the other stuff the government does. So in that regard, I think there's a positive to it. And the one reason I was going to call the party the Pot Party is POT stands for People Opposing Tyranny.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
That's kind of where we're at these days. I believe we need a hybrid of like the Tea Party and the Occupy Wall Street. We need something that everybody can join in with, and that's one thing about pot. Everybody knows it's the kind of party where everybody can join. So
for sure, and that's one of the things I like about doing events and stuff is that we always have a really diverse crowd. We're never
exactly instead of the all-white crowd of the Tea Party and things like that. There's a mixture that you would not get with anything else. That's what marijuana does, a great equalizer.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
Huge mixture and like-minded, and then there's this whole. What I always tell everybody is it's like we're part of a voluntary religion, and we are pretty dedicated, like everybody, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, sacrament every day, and the thing is that we're
just like the Muslims.
We're so into it, and we're so consistent about it that it sort of just becomes ingrained into our life, you know what I mean? And that's part of, I think, the weird part is that, a lot of us have been doing this for 20 plus years, and so it's never been legal, and we've never had this amount of freedom that we have now. Like I lived in Amsterdam, so I was lucky enough to experience it. But for the most part, most people, this is all new and fresh, and the part that gets me sometimes, and in my little conspiracy theorist mind, I always go like, well, now what's coming up around the corner? Like, what are they doing? What are they not telling us right now? Because there's no way they're going to let us have all this, you know what I mean? And not take something else away from us.
Yeah, when's the other foot going to drop?
That's when I'm always a little bit nervous when those kind of things, like I don't want it to get too good too fast, No,
don't forget, the government's always messed around with the drug culture. You go back to the history of since the psychedelic era of LSD and marijuana. Drugs such as angel dust were invented by the government to give people a drug that would, instead of enlighten them, give them something that would totally take their brains away. So the government's been on the forefront of the drug research from the very beginning with the LSD research and things like that.
Oh yeah, I mean my strain I have is called MK Ultra, so I'm pretty aware of all those things. That's what I. Yeah,
well that's why you're aware, because you've smoked and you've I used to like the word the knowledge.
Yeah.
Smoked the knowledge, and that's exactly what marijuana gives you. It gives you a knowledge that otherwise has been taken away from people because of the media, the government. There's so much mind control going on in this country that you need the marijuana in order to be able to filter through the reality of things.
Yeah. I mean, I recently turned the television off in my house. I've been living out of the country for 20 years, so I was all about watching TV all the time again. Like, yeah, I'm catching up. But then when I had my kid, I just noticed he turned into his instant zombie. Like it was really, really like so scary. Like just snapping fingers in front of his eyes and nothing, zero. Nothing there. And I'm like, come on now, this is ridiculous. All right, turn this TV off. So done. But that's really, especially mainstream television. I mean, of course. You'd notice it even on old videos and stuff too. He would get slightly, into it, but it was like any new thing that was really programming. It was like, wow, that's...
Yeah, they've totally they've been able to maneuver the manipulation of the mind greatly with TV and different things you see on now.
Yeah.
It must be 10, 20 times worse than when we were growing up.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm sure there was some stuff thrown in there, just for fun almost, like guys like cutting things in and doing weird stuff. And I'm sure there was all sorts of subliminal messages going on, but I don't think it was so purposely thought out. And I think now it's like we definitely have ingrained a lot of weird stuff in there. Like I said, I noticed it with my kid just because it's like he didn't have a chance to. He's not old enough to have had enough time in front of the television for this stuff to really be this effective, but yet it is. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow.
Yeah, so you're right. That's exactly it.
They nailed it, I guess. And so give me. Oh, I know. I noticed online that you definitely can't wait for your Hillary confrontation at one point, huh? That seems to be your focus.
Yeah, I think that because you could say, hey, you're running for president, it's a pipe dream, which it is in a way. But you know what? The way things are shaking up, that if we can get this pod party out there and start making things happen, because again, 50, 75,000 people are showing up at these rallies. If we get these people to become political, that's a hell of a base to start with. And if the election comes down to Hillary and maybe another Bush, then there's probably people, obviously, they're going to look around and say, who else is out there? So there's a real chance in that regard. So I'm hoping Hillary becomes a Democratic nominee. Don't forget, it's because of Hillary that we have Obama, because people looked around and said, oh, there's got to be something different. There's got to be something new. And then Obama snaked in there. And one thing I'll say is where I start from now, more people know who I am than knew who Obama was before he ran for president.
That's
so
true,
it's just amazing.
But have you been
things
groomed?
Catch fire. That's one thing you have to realize in the political world. Things can happen that you don't even expect 1 or 2 years away.
I doubt you've been groomed as well as he has, though. That's the only difference.
Good point.
I know he's been definitely hand-selected in a few ways, it seems. Now, the Cali, the sort of, have you been in any other politics before, or is it just like your first sort of dabbling? Because I wasn't sure. I thought.
No, I actually had was on the ballot a few years
That's what I
back
thought.
in the grassroots party back in '96 when I first became eligible to run for president. So I actually had ran. But I just did a few TV appearances. I didn't really make it a real campaign like I'm trying to do now.
Sure.
So,
and have you got any any major players behind you right now that you can talk about, or are they just all kind of under the?
No, just starting out. I've got some TV people I've worked with that are interested in helping put together the infomercial thing, knowing how powerful that could be, and just looking for a major sponsor. I think the thing is that eventually, there's a lot of money. It's not, there's not billions being out there, but there's enough money being generated by the marijuana industry right now that if I can capture the attention of people and get some of that money behind a campaign, then that could run a real campaign. Like you said, you need money.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of the things
you'll
have
so much money being generated right now that some of that money could be used for a campaign, and I think I have a real chance.
Sure. And one of the things, like for instance, this weekend when you're down with us at Hands on Hemp, then it's these great photo and video opportunities to get your hands dirty in the ground there, show some plants being grown. That might speak to the people too, because I think one of the things I've noticed is that when you start talking about hemp more than you start talking about cannabis, then you really you strike a chord with a lot of these farmers and a lot of these people that are...
Yeah, you have to point that out, exactly. And then back when I originally started, I wasn't bringing up hemp a lot because it was just more of the marijuana thing. But hemp is so much the key to the revitalizing our industries. And I've been talking to your friend Robert Takata.
Yeah.
And his whole campaign with the hemp thing is amazing because that's what's going to save our economy. You know, marijuana is going to help us become aware of what's going on, but the hemp itself is going to help us provide... food, fuel, jobs. Is amazing what hemp can do, and that's going to be pointed out as well. Marijuana can save the world. That's my whole campaign.
It's like a Trojan horse.
Or through the hemp or whatever we can do with it, it can actually help save this country and save the world.
Sure. It's like a Trojan horse, though, too. Like the cannabis, amazingly, too, it's a kind of an opposite of what I would expect. I would have expected that hemp would have been legal. We would have had hemp all around. And then at a certain point, we just said, well, what would we be scared of here? I don't quite get this. And it's actually...
it's just amazing. The government is not smart enough. Like you said, they thought we would be able to legalize it by now. You're exactly right.
Exactly.
And it shows you, again, they just don't want to let the industry get a foothold.
Right. But by letting it in the way they did, it's amazing because it's now we're so far beyond, like, imagine if we had cigarettes that were made out of marijuana. It's like, well, we already have those. They're called Cranfords. We already have all the dreams that we've ever had are done. Like, we've done it. We did it, done it. Let's move on now. And
the next dream is going to be to put people in power that actually will change the laws and actually get something done. So that's got to be the next dream. We've got some of the legalization going, but the next dream's got to be putting a whole theme out there that to change the way the government's run.
And it's also like the when you start talking about job creation, like, it's mind blowing because they've crunch the numbers, and literally 100 million jobs could be created with hemp, and if you start talking 100 million people getting work, that blows any other presidential speech telling you what you're going to get, because these are real jobs, like real
and that's
jobs.
What's so great about the planning thing, because we're showing right now it can be done. We don't need the government to do it for us. We can do it ourselves.
Yeah, and we're also going to have some veterans down there helping us out, and the idea too is just to kind of go super grassroots on this one, bring it right back to the soil. What I mean? We're not getting any farther grassroots than planting plants.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mother Earth can't get better than that. And
then on top of that, the fact that there's so many products that you can create from it, and even on a simple fact, like even like not big processing equipment or anything, we can right away we can start making, the hempcrete blocks, and we can start showing the town of Springfield, which is where this is going to be at, kind of what's up, because you drive through this town, it's all boarded up. It's like it's literally the perfect town to do this because it's a boarded up town. There's like a concrete company there that doesn't look like they've done any business in the last 10 years. There's, it's like kind of perfect. So we're going to roll in.
Yeah, totally way to revitalize the country.
Yeah, and just show them Springfield. And the cool part about it, in my opinion, is that there's a Springfield in every single state. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
I think Springfield was the name of the town that Beaver Cleaver lived in, too.
Yeah, the Simpsons, and my mom was from Springfield, Mass. I mean, it's just that there is like a Springfield everywhere. So it's really like anywhere America kind of vibe. And then that way, once you show that town can come back, I think we can just make a huge statement to the country. And I think that would be like mind-blowingly perfect. Because last year when we were there, me and Robert were driving around the town, we were just like, this town needs hemp bad. You know what I mean? You could just feel it. And now we're going to come through. I'm sure they're going to think we're a bunch of weirdos right off the front end. You know how it is. We can't help that. But I think give us enough time there, and we will definitely show that town what's up.
Exactly. Never worry about what people think, because when you got your principles, people will come around to what you think because they see that you're dedicated and that you believe in what you're talking about. There's so much that is bull crap that goes on with the politicians that they see that people don't believe in what they talk about. So when they see people who do believe in what they talk about and actually doing something about it, they respect that tremendously, and that's when you win people over.
Yeah, no, I've had people like say to me, "Oh, you should become a politician," and I'm just like, man, that is like the exact opposite of the way I think. You know what I mean? But I understand it is. I mean, it is really nice when you know that what you're telling people is. I mean, it's not gospel by any means, but it is definitely real information that you're trying to get to them. That you're not trying to hoodwink anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying
the
to bring
truth,
them,
which is so rare for politicians to try to spread the truth. That's one thing they don't do. No. So to get out there and to speak truth to power, because that's another thing that I want to get this campaign about, is when we can challenge Hillary and Bush and people like that to why haven't they done anything over the years? Why are they still supporting the military-industrial complex and that whole thing?
Yeah.
Because no one ever brings up the media is not going to do it. So it's up to somebody to challenge these people, get them off their thrones. As Jack Herrera, the emperor wears no clothes. That's exactly what's going on, and we have to expose these people for what they are.
For sure, for sure. I mean, that's also like, the watching people jump on the bandwagon too. It's also funny, like, oh, we knew this all the time, and it's like, really, you knew this all the time, and you didn't do nothing about it. Like, for instance, the government has patented multiple cannabinoid medical conditions, to be treated with cannabinoids. They've already patented a bunch of them, and they've known this since the 70s. So they figured out that it cured cancer by trying to kill rats with THC and figuring out that they lived longer than the rats that didn't have cancer even, you know what I mean? So they're like, well, that's interesting. So let's bury that information. We definitely don't want that out. And so when people started to figure out that there was, the cannabinoids were good for fighting, for creating atrophy within the cells of cancer cells, they were like, oh, well, actually, we knew that, we just didn't publish it. It was like, really? So no medical value, and that's what you'd figured out 35
plus years
ago. Yeah, so you've
been saying for years, exactly. What else do you know that you're not telling us?
Yeah, so it is going to be, I would say so it's 2016 obviously is the next elections, right?
Yep.
So by November of 2016, we should definitely be in I would say a 30-plus state situation by that time, because by looking at how many states are trying to jump on board this year, and then we have all of next year, and going into the year after that, I believe we'll be at a 30-plus state.
Yeah, at least I would hope so. And then try to at least every state that isn't legal by that time get it on the ballot.
Sure.
Because that's going to draw more people to the vote anyway. So.
And those first years are the years that it's that's the year it's interesting, because after it's voted in, not that it's not interesting anymore, but pretty much it's a done deal, and everybody kind of moves on, goes on to the next thing.
Yeah, and getting implemented.
So the momentum at the point of 2016 November would be, I think it could be tsunami style, where it's just like you can't stop it. There's nothing stopping
I agree.
it. So, and then hopefully we have you standing there in front of us and accepting this honor to be representing us in this epic battle that we're in right now. And but then what would happen? What happens if you won? What would you do? You'd have to do something. That'd be the worst part, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. That's why you need a party, though, because you have to have people like-minded. You can't just get in there as president and expect to do anything if you're nobody that supports you. So we have to have a whole party of people that are going to run for different offices throughout the country. So again, that's why I looked at the Tea Party example and the Occupy Wall Street, getting people involved and active.
Yeah.
And that's there could be more than just the president. We could get people elected in a lot of different
And actually, the president is probably the one that, I mean, it may sound the most exciting, but the reality is I think if you get more local offices, things get done faster anyway.
Yeah,
because
exactly. The president's the bully pulpit. It's one thing that moves people, but the other stuff is how you affect the move of government.
Yeah.
I've always believed in nonviolent revolution. That was always my perspective, and this is a nonviolent revolution, getting the people to vote and vote for their own gain instead of voting for the gain of the few and the rich elite that run things. So that's how we're going to do it. You know, we can do it at the ballot box. We don't need to have a violent situation, but we have to get out there and vote. We have to get out there and be active because they've controlled this whole thing. They don't control you by violence; they just control you by mind control.
Right.
So we have to get out there and fight it that way.
Well, it's been good. I mean,
what's so great about this country. It can still be done. That's one thing about the USA that beats any other country in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, as corrupt as we are in our own ways of doing things, there is definitely a unanimous sort of American sort of vibe thing of that we can do it. We can change stuff, and I think with the exposure of the internet and with the fact that we can get everything done and moving really quickly now, we're kind of at that spot. You know, it may even happen.
Yep.
You know,
like I said, I wouldn't run if I didn't think it could really happen. I'm making a real effort. That's why I need people's support, because if we're going to make a real effort, we need to get the support of the people and actually make some things. You know, get the word out there, get a whole party started. This is why it can happen, because political movements, again, spark up out of nowhere. And in the course of history, most political movements come out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I mean, right now,
that's how this could happen as well. And we start with a much bigger base. We've already got the whole pro-marijuana crowd, so we start with a bigger base than a lot of people have ever started before anything.
Well, people aren't, and right now, people aren't afraid to vote for a marijuana-related person or
exactly. So it's gotten that regard already out of the way. So that's what helps out. And now we just have to push it to where let's not just legalize it, but let's get the whole country based on the values of marijuana and actually use the hemp to help save the economy as well. So the whole program, the 10-point marijuana program of using it for every perspective, any way we can to help the economy, help the government, help the health. It's amazing. It's really, when you look at it, it's amazing how much it really can do. That's why God put it here. That's what you have to realize. There's a reason that it's here, and we have to use it for the right purposes.
Oh, for sure. And I think right now with the way people's minds have finally got wrapped around being green and being eco, and it's not like having to. I mean, there was like a little moment there where I think it was almost too much. Everybody was overkilling it, but now I think people are finally getting into line where it's just becoming normal for them. You know, and it's
that's a big thing.
Like
when
supermarkets,
that happens, that means we've already started the revolution right there.
Yeah, like locally here at the supermarkets and stuff. When one of the things I love, I mean, I eat organic only vegetables, things like that, and that's one of the things I noticed. Like you can see the buying power it's working. Because a lot of these supermarkets, they were just going bottom line, cheap. But at a certain point, I mean, the organic vegetables are outselling the non-organic, and now people are starting
now
to finally come around.
Local big supermarkets, they have the organic sections. Exactly.
Yeah, Walmart. I mean, these are like places that we were like, really? You walk in, you're like, Walmart?
Yeah, that does blow your mind.
Like, organic food at Walmart doesn't really make sense in my mind, but I guess, they see that's what they need. You know, they obviously had enough people requesting it, so that's where they're.
That's it. When the people demand it, then things get done. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and that's where we're at now. Well, great. We're gonna I'm gonna wrap it up and take a little 10-minute break here, and come back with Bubble Man from BC from Bubble Bags, and I want to thank Reverend Bud Green for getting on the show. And if anybody here in Colorado wants to meet up with Reverend Bud Green, he'll be this weekend with us down at Hands on Hemp, getting his hands dirty in the field. So give us a shout at the Hood Labsters on Facebook, or you can always contact us at hoodlamcolorado@gmail.com, and we can give you an update of where we're going to be. Thanks, Bud.
Adam, thank you for all the help. I appreciate you putting me on the show. And again, everybody support what we're doing there at the Hands on Hemp thing. It's a great program and a great thing you guys are doing.
Thanks, Bud. Awesome. See you soon.
Okay. Thanks, buddy.
So there we go. I guess we got to announce the presidential candidacy for Reverend Bud Green. So there you go. I didn't even know that I was doing that, so I would have made it a bit more exciting, I guess. But that's the way it goes. So we'll be back. I'm just gonna. We thought Nikka T would be in the studio and Jibs, but I know Jibs is not gonna make it. Nikka T will find out, and doesn't matter. We've got on the line coming up. We'll have Bubble Man from Bubble Bags. See you guys in a second.
You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
Cannapunch is a delicious and effective medical marijuana beverage proudly made right here in Colorado. Each bottle is freshly infused with 100% pure flower extract from the highest grade marijuana plants available today. Using proprietary extraction methods, every bottle of Cannapunch is consistently and reliably infused with an exact milligram dosage that you can count on to relieve your symptoms each and every time. Cannapunch is delicious. There's never any medicine-y taste. We use only 100% cannabis flowers. No trim or byproducts are ever used in Cannapunch. It does not require refrigeration and comes in convenient, resealable multi-dose bottles from 60 milligrams to 200 milligrams. We have drinks with dosage that works best for you. Cannapunch is available in a variety of delicious flavors like black cherry, watermelon, pineapple mango, and blue raspberry. And we now have strain-specific beverages available just for you. Cannapunch is delicious, convenient, consistent, and effective. Give it a try and experience the Cannapunch difference.
Call Canasher at 1-800-420-5757 for all your insurance needs. Canasher understands the risks you face each day, and we are there to protect your business and your investment. Since 2010, Canasher has been serving the cannabis industry nationwide. Call Canasher at 1-800-420-5757 or visit us on the web at canasher.com to learn more about our insurance and risk management services. Proud member of the NCIA.
Independent Records and Videos has been your locally owned and operated choice for music, movies, and lifestyle accessories since 1978. Independent Records and Videos has 7 locations from Denver to Colorado Springs to Pueblo to serve your entertainment needs. Whether it's vinyl, CDs, DVDs, books, smoking accessories, or hundreds of other fun and fanciful items, Independent is ready and waiting to make your dreams come true. We are always buying, selling, and trading vinyl, CDs, books, and DVDs, so sell yours and buy ours. Independent Records and Videos, your entertainment headquarters. Check us out at beindependent.com or on Facebook.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
iVita Wellness is committed to compassionate patient care while providing the highest quality medicine at an affordable price. At iVita Wellness, patients can get top shelf ounces for $150 every day. iVita Wellness also carries pharmaceutical grade pure CO2 oil. iVita Wellness is located in Uptown Denver on 1616 Pearl Street, open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can reach us at 303-952-9150 or our website at www.ivitawellness.com. iVita Wellness is Denver's Compassionate Care Center.
The Hemp Connoisseur is Colorado's premier guide to hemp culture. Our mission is to elevate the image of the medical cannabis and hemp industries to create widespread acceptance of the cannabis sativa plant. You can find the latest issue of the Hemp Connoisseur at more than 200 7-Elevens, your favorite dispensary, MMJ doctor offices, and tattered covered bookstores. Do you consider yourself a cannabis connoisseur? Then come be a part of the Hemp Connoisseur's first cannabis championship. Visit us at thcmag.com for info on how to sample the best medicine Colorado has to offer.
This segment was brought to you by The Farm, a medical marijuana care center located at 2801 Iris Street in Boulder. The Farm carries premium, cannabis, edibles, and Hummingbird brand products. Visit our new cannabis lifestyle store for your local artesian glass, vaporizers, and hemp clothing. The Farm has been serving Boulder since 2009. Isn't it time you come and see what we have to offer?
Extraction Tech Solutions. Not only is it safe, but it offers one of the only ETL certified essential oil extraction systems on the market. Our equipment meets or exceeds all of the North American safety standards. Customer relationships are important to us, so after the sale, it doesn't stop for us. We are reliable and therefore when our customer needs us. We offer pre- and post-sales training, method development, services, and repairs. Extraction Tech, safe and reliable because it matters. Contact us at www.extractiontech.com. or 720-515-9254.
Green Faith Ministry is for spiritual guidance, MMJ information, and networking combined with compassionate care on the way to enlightenment with all Green Faith sacraments. Green Faith provides charity assistance, including medical and food throughout the year. Contact them at greenfaithministry.com.
New things are here from Incredibles. Gummies! Our new gummies come 2 to a pack. Each 2-pack contains 100 milligrams of the finest medicine around. What's more, each 50 milligram infused gummy disc is fortified with 100 milligrams of vitamin C for an extra healthful kick. Available in black cherry, green apple, orange strawberry, blue raspberry, and strawberry banana. Gummies, new from Incredibles. Same great flavors, brand new shape, and now fortified with vitamin C.
Ideal 420 soil is preloaded to perfection with all your nutrient, microbial, and biostimulant needs. It's compatible with all strains and is good for a 22-week grow cycle from seed to harvest. This product is 100% organic and gives your marijuana that awesome aroma and smooth taste we all desire. Ideal 420 Technologies is well grounded in soil chemistry, soil physics, and microbial biology, making them the most advanced soil company in the marijuana industry. They do the science so growers can focus on what truly matters, the plants themselves. No more mixing and feeding of expensive nutrient lines, supplements, and foliar sprays. Not to mention, the company is prideful in being the most consistent soil product that has yet to hit the market. Due to the results when using Ideal 420 soil, they are quickly changing the standard for cannabis cultivation. To order the product, go to ideal420soil.com. Use promo code INTHELAB for an additional 20% off.
The Law Office of Edson Maton and Matz provides criminal defense, family law, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running a medical marijuana center, optional premises cultivation operation, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout the state of Colorado. We're focused on providing high-quality service and customer satisfaction. We will do everything we can to meet your expectations. WarrenEdson.com. Edson Maton and Matz in Denver, 303-831-8188, and in Aspen, 970-948-7183. WarrenEdson.com.
Are you a medical marijuana patient or interested in finding out how to become one? Contact Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. Conveniently located on Hamden and Tamarack in the Whole Foods parking lot behind Proof of the Pudding. Mile High Wellness offers a wide variety of edibles, hashes, and some of Colorado's top strains. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. 3525 South Tamarack, Suite 110, on the corner of Hamden and Tamarack. 720-382-8516. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it on grass. Runongrass.com.
National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
Back. We are back. Hold on one second. Okay, had to have my extra break there. Thanks to Rambler for last week dropping off this awesome piece to us. It is and was sick. I had to change the dome. It had a slight problem. I'd have to say Ramby, you rambled on, but I'll ramble about yours thing first. 1 second. It had a black dome, and I couldn't see what I was doing, so it was like almost impossible to get a good hit with it. So I had to put a domeless on. That's the only difference, but sick piece. So we're going to give a call to a legend in the industry, Bubble Man, my buddy, and he's actually a distributor of our products up in Canada. He distributes Hoodland products. So we're giving him a call right now? All right, cool. But like I said, good old friend of mine and deep into the hash industry. Anybody who's into hash obviously knows who he is, seen his stuff online, freshheadies.com. He's got incredible macro shots. I'm going to see if he can maybe send us some stuff that we can put up, or who knows. He's very techie too. So what didn't work? Oh, could be busy. He's up in beautiful BC. Like, I've sat at his house and seen the view. It's gorgeous. He's on the phone. All right. Well, we'll give him a call in 2 seconds. Hopefully he's listening to the show and he feels extremely guilty for wasting our time. No, it's all good. And like I said, he's like in the pretty much. I'd say, one thing about BC is they have been innovative in this industry for a long time. And we know they always, I lived in Europe, so it wasn't my problem so much. But I guess, with the BC bud flooding America at one point, it just got a bad rap as far as, like anywhere. Like Amsterdam gets a bad rap now because they're commercially growing massive amounts of cannabis. But I have to say, BC definitely innovators in the game when it comes to like the smoking oils and things like that. They're pretty much we're ahead of the game on that too. They're very hash culture orientated too. That's one thing. The difference between Canadians and Americans, I think, is that the fact that they have had and always had good quality hash and really appreciated it. America kind of went through a phase, and then it seems like we just kind of lost the interest or something. There was always Americans going to, for instance, Becca Valley or going to places and checking it out, and that was always there. But as far as the culture here in America, kind of just fizzled away in the early 80s, mid 80s. I remember Afghani being real popular on the East Coast, early 80s, probably about 82 to 84, something like that. And then kind of also disappeared off the radar. And now, due to war situations and other inconveniences like that, it's getting harder and harder to keep these genetics clear and clean. So we'll get an idea of where Bubble Man's coming from and see if he agrees on any of these factoids that I've throw out there. So we'll give him a shout in a sec. You gonna try one more time? Good. We'll try one more time. And then we're going to get Nikka T on the phone. Apparently he has overslept, so we're going to find out what's up with that. And just get him on the air, so should be cool. Now, also the focus obviously would be more bubble hash and solventless. But one of the things I like to touch on is a lot of times is dry sieve, and that's what I'll think Bubble Man's really interested too, because he's got these great screens now for doing dry sieve, and I think that's the true lost art, just because it's more work. Still going off? Still dropping? All right. Yeah. Yeah, give Nikka a call. Let's call Nikka, find out where he overslept. Unbelievable. Missing an in-studio ability to be on such a major show like this. Can't believe it. But it's okay. Technology. Oh, might as well do a little quick shout out to Way to Grow now, since we're just sitting here doing nothing. Way to Grow, our number one sponsor here on the Adam Dunn Show. They got locations everywhere: Boulder, Fort Collins, Lakewood, Denver, Colorado Springs, and Central Denver. The latest one in Central Denver is at 1051 South Platte River Drive. Huge 20,000 square foot spot. Everything you need. They are finishing off their dirt cheap sale last couple days. So if you're needing dirt, which I think this is the time of year to be needing dirt, now's the time to go in, grab super deals. Roots Organics for $10.99. That's a deal right there. So we are calling in now to Nikka T.
Yo.
Yo, is this Mr. Nikka T, sir?
Yes, it is.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine, my friend.
Yes, King. Yes, King. Sorry. I feel horrible. I was in the garden super late last night.
Well, at least you were in the garden. It wasn't a classic, outrage and hard on a Tuesday night, so good. You got to take care of the ladies, right?
Definitely. Always. The garden is just growing out of my control lately. I'm just strain collecting lately.
Yeah, and also this time of year, whenever the weather changes like this and it gets that little difference, things just explode, you know what I mean? Like the things that were just kind of limping along and doing their thing or whatever, all of a sudden when you get this, it's like just a different atmosphere, Everything all of a sudden that they don't even know that, they know that outside is really nice, even though they're inside, It's amazing.
Man, I still want to put some of my girls outside this year, but gonna have to wait till the greenhouse.
Yeah, no, it is a definite. It hurts you when you don't have plants out yet. I'm feeling you on that one. We definitely kind of hesitated, and now all of a sudden it just came on top of us like a wave the other day. I was like, oh, now we're behind. A week ago we were safe because of the hail and stuff. So that's the other thing about this state. I definitely got to be careful putting them out too early because a lot of people got rock and roll the other days with those hailstorms. So
yeah.
Better safe than sorry, I would say. So, we tried to call Bubble Man. He didn't answer yet. He was, I think it was busy, so we skipped it. Originally I was going to call him first and then have you jump in, but it's okay. We're all professionals. We can chit chat from any angle. So basically, for those of the people out there, I'm sure there's not many of them who don't know who you are, but you have a company called Essential Extracts, right?
Yes, Essential Extracts, and now we're working on Extract Artist and a few other little side projects as well. Always doing something different.
For sure. And Extract Artist is definitely, I would say, becoming its own little like phenomenon in a sense. I mean, I always laugh because 20 years ago, there's hardly anybody out there that you could call a hash artist. You know, I was playing around with it in Amsterdam and doing a lot of dry sieve stuff, and I felt really lonely at that time. There was no internet, you know what I mean? But now I look online and I'm like, Jesus, there is this thousands of people that are interested in this art. And I always thought of it as an art form too, because like I understood that, you know, it's a lot of finesse involved, and there's a lot of, you know, selection is important. I think one of the things people don't realize is just knowing what your material is to begin with is important. So what's
definitely, and that's kind of where some of the art, you know, plays, especially for us. You know, we tell clients all the time that we make artistic blends. You know, if they don't give me enough strain-specific material, you know, we'll oftentimes mix material because I know what that trichome formation is, and I know how it will mix, you know, terpene-wise and oil-wise with other strains. So, you know, that's what we call artistic blends, is when we mix, you know, a sour diesel with an OG or a chem or something like that.
Yeah, no. And we used to call them cocktails, I guess, back in the day. But we just like, our whole deal was a lot of times same deal. It was like you don't have enough, especially when you're talking about, you know, a half a gram of something or whatever. Like when you're doing really small runs, you know. What I realized over time was that it was always hard to get that strain specific type unless you know, and if you did, it was because you had one giant room of just that, you know what I mean? And then you were bored, and then you wanted different strains. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
What's your favorite strains here in Colorado that, it doesn't have to be specifically from here, but what's your favorite material to work with that if somebody hands it to you, you just know that's it?
You know, generally speaking, OG, just because the terpene profile, and it's because what I prefer. But, you know, we've been finding all kinds of amazing strains out here in Colorado that we've just been loving to run. Some of these CBD strains especially. You know, the terpene content may not be there with some of these CBD strains, but the oil content is just insane. And, you know, of course, the CBD levels are jumping and skyrocketing, and we're learning more and more and finding higher CBD strains every day. So that's one of the cool things out here in Colorado, especially as like regulation is brought on, is the ability to, you know, protect and grow these strains legally, which has brought on, you know, a lot more of these CBD strains out of the woodwork, you know, from Jamaica and from other places. Yeah,
that's one of the things we touched on a couple episodes ago, that we all kind of had this, I wouldn't say it was an epiphany, but we definitely all sort of thought about it at the same time. We're like, you know, what's interesting is that there's a lot of CBD heavy strains coming out of Jamaica, and possibly we were thinking, well, you know, since people are using it more medicinally, just traditionally, it's like without ever being told it's medicine, or without ever, you know, going to a dispensary and buying it as medicine, they've just been using it more therapeutically, and maybe they picked up on things that other people wouldn't, because other people are just looking for like knock me over the head, and that's it. They don't want to see they're not looking for conditions and things. But yeah, a bunch of strains coming out of Jamaica seem to be pretty loaded like that. What's the one strain that's out of there?
Jamaican Lion, and the Lion's Tabernacle. Right. One of my brethren out of the Bay Area actually found those guys.
Now, did they come from? Do you know if those genetics came like with the seeds from Jamaica, or was it genetic, or was it just like an influence from, or what was the situation on those? Do you know if they were?
You know, I do not know the exact answer to that question, and I need to meet up with that guy. I haven't linked with him in a couple of years, but he used to come out to my dance hall events in the Bay Area when I was DJing all the time. I love that brethren. So
and when he was
Lion's Tabernacle.
And was he? And they knew it was a high CBD strain right off the bat, or they just happened to happen, or how did that work? Do you know anything about that?
I have a feeling that he had been growing that strain for a little bit. When finally all these regulations started coming through, I've got a feeling, you know, he got it tested, or maybe one of his clients or the dispensaries in California possibly got it tested, and they were all like, well, you know, this is a high CBD strain. And I think after that is when he linked up with Swerve.
Right.
Because I know him going to Cups, you know, working with that strain, before. So I'm not totally where the came that strain. I'm just happy that he's working with it and breeding projects as well.
You're cutting out. Anyway, I just had a little cut out there. I was just trying to figure out technically if it was on your phone or our thing. Yeah, because that's what I think interesting now is that people are finding out certain strains are high CBD or CBN or CBG or whatever, and it's all coming out mostly just because they either get it tested from curiosity's sake or now because of regulations. So a lot of these strains, I mean, what I noticed too is that from the solvent extracts, I'm not sure about the solventless. Does that cherry flavor pass through a lot on the solventless, or is that kind of one of those? Is it more?
It does. It's a little bit more faint.
Yeah.
But some of the similarities I've seen with solvent extracts, solventless extracts, especially on some of these very, very CBD strains, is I talked to some of the solvent, extract artists talking about how it's that much harder to purge the strains because they're so oily, so often.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've heard too.
Residual solvent mixed with those oils so much further, so it takes a while to actually remove them. And the same type happens with our process. Sometimes those CBD, we're drying them for 3 weeks. It just takes that much longer to get all that out because it really binds to the water, and or binds to the salt. So
hey, Nikka, I'm gonna recall you again and try to see if we can eliminate this little click because we have this weird click that's coming in. I'm not sure if you hear it or not, but sort of cutting out at the end of each of your sentences. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to call Bubble Man, get him on the line because we've been trying him earlier. So you hang up and we'll call you right back after we get in touch with Bubble Man. How's that?
Sounds good, man, and thanks again for having me. So appreciate you all.
Of course, no problem. We'll call you right back.
All right, bye.
So not sure what was going on there. Sorry about that, everybody. That was definitely something in the system. So we'll call Bubble Man now and get him on the line. Hopefully there's no clicky noises like that. And get his take on this whole hash world. Like I said, this is one of those episodes where we'll just dabble on little things. And if you guys have any questions, give a call in. We have super experts now on... here we go. We have all the experts in the world right now. Now, a few of us. I tried to get Rob Clark on too, but he's traveling around Turkey right now. So,
boom, 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 boom.
That was his answer machine, I believe. For his kids, it sounds like. I'll send him a quick text and see what is going on with that. Now, again, I said that we were talking mostly about water hash, but again, everybody that's either going to be online with us or me, obviously, can pretty much give you if you have any, major questions or things that are bothering you about hash production, which, again, limited amount of people out there, but they're growing quickly, and the appreciation levels are out off the chain. So, like I said, shoot them at me. Let me see, Bubble Man. I give a quick shout out while I'm looking for this to Incredibles, my other, I can't say number 2 sponsor because that sounds weird. My other number 1 sponsor. You have 2 number 1 sponsors, our 2 top dogs. Incredibles, number 1 edibles here in Colorado. Definitely available, I would say, at almost every store out there. There can't be in every one, but they're available in over 400 shops. They got 12 different flavors. My favorite, Fireberry. His favorite, I think, was Peanut Butter Buddha Bar. No. He likes that one. Yeah, they're all delicious. That's his answer to everything. They're all delicious. The Makiba Bar is the new one. It's vegan. It's pretty awesome. And they've got new gummies also that are... I can't eat gummies, so I can't tell you how they are, but I'm sure they're awesome. And like I said, best flavors, super, everything's decarboxylized perfectly and works great. Available in over 400 shops. So if you're not available at your local shop, make sure you tell them to get them there because I'm guaranteed they will be selling out fast. And let me just, almost found it. Too many numbers on my phone. Here we go. So here, just send a text to him real quick. Never calling. And double check the number maybe too while I read it. You never know. I think it was the right number. So yes, Incredibles once again, #1 edibles out here in Colorado. And the universe, as Mitch likes to emphasize, even though he's not here, I'll just throw it in there for him. So we got it. Let's see. It's like what? Oh yeah, we got time. We got 45 minutes, so we'll be fine. And we will get to the bottom of this hash story, see what's on the horizon. If there's any new tech stuff out there, there's a few secrets in the that him and I guess could talk about and sort of enlighten the world with, but it's all depending on if he's there. Also, again, back to this weekend, if anybody is in Colorado, it's a good chance for you to get your hands into the dirt and with our special Hands-on Hemp edition in Springfield, Colorado, which is about 5 hours south of here in Denver. So it's not. You got it? Was it? No way. See? There you go. My screen is so cracked, I can't see things half the time. I'll be like trying to read it. So maybe it's time for a new phone. So we will give Bubble Man a call on the right number. I thought it was his kids, maybe, that last one. I love when we call the wrong numbers and people, like, it'd be awesome if we left some messages for them. Like, wow, we're on the radio? Okay, so Bubble Man one more time, and then we're going to call Nikka T back if that doesn't go through for some reason. And we will get him on, talk a little bit more about the scene here in Colorado, and also the Cup's coming up too. We've got the 28th, I think, is the San Francisco Cup. So see if he's going out there. I'm sure he's got plenty of Cali fam. All right, here we go.
Hello.
Hey there, Bubble Man. How you doing?
Hey, good to hear from you, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I have a completely cracked screen on my phone, so I think I dialed some other random people up there. It's probably your neighbors or something, you know. You're alive on the air. So anyway, we had Nikka T on. We're going to call him in a minute and get him back on, but I thought I'd chat with you for a minute alone, see how life is up there in beautiful BC. It's sure
really beautiful.
Yeah, it always is. I mean, you got such a killer spot there too, so I'm sure people have. If anybody knows the photos of you online, they've probably seen that beautiful view too with humpback whales and stuff. So, yeah, can't go wrong.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the view right now through about 5 beautiful cannabis mother plants.
Nice. Yeah, one of the things that I love about you is that you've always been real passionate about getting awesome photos for people out there and sort of showing them what's going down at either macro or micro almost levels and getting people sort of an idea of what's going on down there. And
it does seem like a pretty major part of the education. I think I've learned most of, like, a good 50% of what I know just from my own photos, seeing what's going on those levels. So yeah, it's key.
Well, and technology is also awesome now, isn't it? With the quality of what we can do. Like before, everything was like extra complicated, and now if you get the right camera and you can get in there, you're just like blown away, even by, barely even skilled shots. Sometimes I'm like, wow.
It's true, and unfortunately, at the recent Champs Expo, I had my camera stolen.
No.
Yeah.
In Toronto?
$6,000.
No.
Yeah, in Toronto.
No.
Like the same day that Simon had all his cannabis cups stolen.
No. It was one of those events? Oh my God. Too many people?
Well, it didn't seem, you know what? I think it was a good event still. I just think that his event, Simon losing his cups, was I think it was more of an inside thing because it was overnight that he lost his and they were locked up, and so it was really probably a security person that did that.
That's crazy.
For me, we were making hash in the booth. We were grinding up a quarter pound of some beautiful nugget that people couldn't believe we were just grinding into powder to sift over screens.
Yeah.
We had 150 plus people around the booth, and then of course, we have to invite everyone in to dab it because we want to show them, you can dab this stuff. It's full mouth. It drips into a liquid, and so we invited everyone into the booth to dab, and then the camera went missing.
No good deed goes unpunished, right? As we always say.
Well, you know what? Everyone said it. Everyone said, "Dude, you're too good of a guy. Your karma's going to come back to you." It was literally 36 hours, and these people have originally told me they didn't want me to mention this,
Yeah.
And then I told them how I would mention it, and they said, okay, well, if you mention it like that, I guess we don't mind. It's a local licensed producer. They haven't even acquired their license yet. They haven't even grown their herb yet, but they met with me about a month and a half ago, saw my photos, and wanted to hire me to do their strains. So, great. He calls me 36 hours after my camera's taken. I guess his partner was there while it happened, and she saw, like, I became very defeated. I don't become defeated too often, but man, the color came out of my face, and I was just sort of sick to my stomach. She witnessed it. She told the owner of this LP, and he phoned me like 36 hours and said, look, I'm going to buy you a new camera.
Wow.
Okay? I don't want you to tell everyone my dispensary or my licensed production facility is the best. You don't have to get behind me. You're not selling out. I'm going to buy you a camera because you're a good guy. I love your photos. And then you can just come and photograph my plants, and we'll call it even. And so to me, that was just a hugely generous, kind offer coming from someone that right now a lot of the people in the community are just hating on all the licensed producers.
Right.
Because, of course, they're the big guys. They're coming in, and people feel like they're, taking things away from them.
Taking my yob. You're taking my yob. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. That is
their job.
Exactly. Well, that's the inevitable part of this industry, is that now we are in the expansion phase, and then with that comes jealousy, and comes all sorts of ugly emotions when you start getting people become either successful, or they've coming in from a different angle and are being like, hey, I'm sorry, but we're just trying to do something that's professional, and not that other people are unprofessional, but a lot of us are, coming into this industry from just organically happen to be there. You know what I mean? We never went to school for it, or any of these things. And now there are people literally studying, going to school almost. So
well, that's it, right? And then there's all these other guys that are coming in from the money aspect of it, and people are like, "Oh no, these guys are going to ruin everything." And it'll be interesting to see. I'm in support of all of it. I support licensed producers. I support the home grower. I support dispensaries, and I don't accept a world where we don't have all of them.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. And what people don't realize is, we're not going to be able to keep up, because everybody wants, especially when the concentrate game, as that gets bigger and bigger, people don't realize, it takes a pound of weed to make, maybe 90 grams or so of material, that even that gets broken down further, and people only want the top 12% of that, you know what I mean? And that's one of the things that even when I was originally making hash, I realized, like, this is almost not sustainable for myself, you know what I mean? It's just for me personally, and I have a huge garden, because I'm like, it's hard, you almost.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about hash, is that although cannabis fit into prohibition, and we were able to raise the prices and create this whole industry around the prohibition of cannabis, hash itself sort of breaks the mold. The real hash, not just this contaminated, adulterated, smuggled hash, but the hash that you're talking about, just trying to make it for yourself. And that's really what a lot of my education is about right now, showing, okay, how many plants and how many lights and how many tents does Bubble Man need to have to grow himself that 1 gram of, like, full melt 90, right, 73, or 120. So if I get 10 to 12% return, which is definitely not even close to 90 grams off a pound.
No.
I end up getting only a fraction of my return is something I actually want. Like you were mentioning earlier, it's not like we want all of it. We do want all of it for different medicinal aspects, salves and medibles, but really there's only a certain part of it that's what I would consider. If I found out I had cancer tomorrow, I would be getting the best that I could, and I would be eating that into my system. I wouldn't be trying to find trim or leaf or some material that people have already washed,
sure,
which is what most medibles are made with.
Yeah, no, and that's, the most important part is knowing where it's one of the things I emphasize to people is, like, probably the number one reason to grow your own cannabis is just for that alone, knowing exactly what went into it, just like growing your own vegetables. How awesome is that when you can do it? And the tastes are always there, and everything is, it's always it's definitely going to be a lot better when you are in charge, when you consume these things. And so this is a consumable, and so that's where I think it always needs to be in the person's hands, so that they have a chance to actually control the finished product. And trim is like, now we're actually gone beyond trim. Now it's whole plant runs or all day long. That's like a norm. That's a norm. Back in the day, that was definitely not a norm. It was like, wow, you did that. You know what I mean? It was almost
people thought it was completely insane in the early 2000s. In Jamaica, when I first went there with the bags, even the Jamaicans couldn't. They were just like, you could tell they were like crawling in their skin. It was
for sure. Watching you put it in water, putting it into water. I mean, come on now. That was the first thing. The first time I ever did it too. Same thing. I almost couldn't. I couldn't make it. I was like, poured it in there.
It was hard.
Yeah, it was painful. But now it's actually nice because you can clean your whole counter and like wipe it down and get it all in. Get it all in there. You don't lose the drop.
I turn my entire crop.
Yeah.
So every plant that I have a license federally here in Canada to produce 98 plants.
Uh-huh.
I have 2 8x4 tents, and every month I can produce between 30 and 40 grams of full melt resin out of one of those tents with 600 watt lights.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, it's and like you said, you get to a point where you actually know that it takes this much to produce that, and again, the sustainability, that's just one person. So imagine when you have Bubble Man and all his friends.
Well, that's it. There's a lot of people smoking, and I think it's why a lot of these new companies, they're so trapped in the vegetative state of the plant. They believe that cannabis is that fan leaf, right? It's they're all stuck in the marijuana. I kind of try to tell them, try to use the word cannabis, because cannabis is medicinal and cannabis is recreational and cannabis is industrial. But once you start messing around with like weird words like marijuana that are rooted in racism and anti-Mexican, and then you start, calling cannabis hemp because, hemp, well, that was a lie we told our government in 1994. No, this isn't marijuana. Cannabis, this is hemp, a distant relative. I'll never forget telling our Minister of Agriculture and Finance that it's a distant relative of cannabis. Well, wow, what a lie that was. It's like completely cannabis.
Yeah, it's all cannabis.
It's all cannabis.
Yeah, no, this is definitely how I feel about it too. And then you got, of course, Rob and his. It's all indica, right? So.
Oh, right, it's all indica.
It's all indica, so we can pretty much narrow it down to that.
Changing the game on us again.
Once again, that's his specialty. So how's the dry sieve situation up there going? Are you still like a little isolated group and just sort of keeping it rolling, or is there anybody actually doing it?
It's funny because we've been promoting the dry sifting pretty heavy for the last about year and a half, selling all the larger screens and teaching people carding techniques. Entered the Barcelona Spanibus with Matt with his Barb dry sift, and he won first place with that.
Right.
I cleaned his dry sift again for the Champ Show, and he won first place with that. So people are showing that when you enter it, when you have it, it's the holy grail. I asked the Cannabis Cup audience last year when I spoke, who in here has BHO? Half the hands go up. Who in here has full melt water hash? Maybe 10% of the hands go up. Who in here has full melt dry sift? No hands go up, even though Skunkman Sam was in the audience, and I know he had it.
Yeah, of course.
But that's one person.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Out of the people that pay the money and come to the cup, they're the ones that take the time off. They go away from Thanksgiving in America. They spend all that money and time and energy. These are the people that are more focused than most on this plant and the resins that we seek, and yet not a single one of them has the full melt dry sift.
Yeah, well, again, like it's that knowing that that's the top 3% or 2 to 3% of the plant.
1 to 3, absolutely. Yeah, you're right, and I try to tell people like, get it off first. Just do a light sifting.
Yeah.
We've learned a new trick recently. I don't know if you've heard of this new trick, which blew me away. A 250 micron on top of a 180 micron. Have you heard of this?
So you got you're just cleaning out the dust first, and
it's huge screen holes. Dry sifting. You use like a 150 to extract.
Right.
Okay, we're talking micron, not lines per inch, to confuse the audience. Dry sifting is generally. We would talk about dry sifting because it's silk in lines per inch or mesh count. Those numbers are counterintuitive to the measurements of micron, meaning when a micron goes down, a lines per inch goes up. So we're going to talk micron. My screens are generally 150 micron, and then we clean and card over a 70 micron, pushing the contaminant through.
Right.
This new trick are larger holes, and you take a 250 micron and you put it on top of a 180 micron. Now, these are the metal framed, almost like when you put it upside down, it's almost like a little, you can fit inside. You know, the screen is dropped about 2 inches below the frame.
They have like the red glue on the outside?
Exactly. So the bottom screen we're going to have flipped upside down, so the screen is right flush top. There's no indentation. You put a few little, just a couple of 4 points on each point of the screen to lift it a quarter of an inch. I use a little foamy. You put that 250 screen on, throw some buds or some trim over top of that. What happens is the pistillate hairs, the stigmas, all these little contaminants, for whatever reason, and I think it happens in that quarter of an inch of space when they fall, they jam into the second screen. And it almost, when you lift the screen up and you go down even and you look across the screen, it looks like a forest of these stigma hairs.
Right.
And when you lift the second screen, you have 99% gland heads underneath. And I mean 99%. I've never found a trick that works as easy as this to let people make pure full melt dry sift. It takes about 10 seconds, and anyone can do it.
Nice. And are you making boxes? Are you making your own new boxes like this, or what are you doing?
Well, we're doing the metal frame screens. I've just put them on order, and they're for people that want to make their own. Please don't go and look for microns. It's going to be measured in mesh or lines per inch, so I'll give the audience the numbers. You want a 90 mesh count, 90 lines per inch, and you want a 60 mesh count. The 60, the small number, is the 250 micron, and the 90, the higher number, is the 180 micron. And I use those two just to do that little trick and acquire some nice sift. Then I take the rest of the material and I put it through the 150 and then card over the 70. So it just adds an arrow to your quiver of hash making.
Nice. No, I like that. And also, it seems like if you can do that with material that's not, because I'm usually thinking of just cleaning everything out, because I'm like, we'll run everything through the 150, boom, and then we'll just start from there. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how most people think about it. But then again, this is like a nice way to kind of, it's almost like when you're painting, when you watch somebody who paints and then they do everything opposite of the way you would do it. You're like, hey, that's kind of weird. Oh, wait a minute. Now I see it. It's a face.
So weird.
Now I see the face.
It is so weird. It took me a while, but I'll try to, when I get these screens, and I'll send you a set to play with, because I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, no, it sounds awesome.
Never, in all the years that you've made hash, you have never seen it been made this quick and this easy. Now, you're not getting large amounts.
No,
but
that's
the screens are only 2 feet by 1 feet. So I just put them on my counter, and whenever I have some nice nug, I bounce it, I lift it, and I've got, literally every 10 seconds you could hit a Skunkman Sand size rip of 99% pure heads.
Yeah, no, it's definitely and that's kind of the classic. That's back in the day when I was like, if I had to run out to a concert or something, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I got to make some hash first, And so I always like to do it right before I left. I didn't like to make it and have it sit around, because it never could. That was the problem. It never could sit around, and it was just kind of like, as you created it, it was just like, that's it. And I used to call it 30-meter hash, because it never got farther than 30 meters away from
remember you calling it 30-meter hash. We've known each other now.
Exactly. I know. I'm just saying.
1995.
I know. It's amazing, right? It's like 20 whatever years, 19 years. Yeah.
Cannabis in Amsterdam. HB, No Good Buds, the Empire State Building.
Oh, yeah. You were there. I know you were there for all this craziness. All
of it.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. But it's nice to see that people, I think this industry has grown, though.
Oh, yeah.
There's a million knockoff bags out there you've seen. I know that you and me, I had Mila on the show about, I don't know, maybe a month during 420, and we've seen how the spark between you guys went from craziness, to her understanding that, hey, this industry is all about innovation, and what you brought to the table, which is, obvious, is the fact that, when she first did hers, it made sense, and it was a revolution in its own way. But by refining it further, and that's what other people don't understand, they would see the workload being bigger. And I'm like, no, it's about giving people choice. You know what I mean? And then she followed suit with you and started to do what you were doing. And that's kind of, now I see it. Now we can all see it as patting each other on the back in the long run. But of course,
absolutely,
it's
and really, you got to give credit to Eldon. Eldon invented the bags.
Yep.
You know, it wasn't Mila, it wasn't Mark Rose. Eldon invented the bags. He sat on the couch. He looked at the machine, Reinhard Delp's machine.
Yep.
That's the one that Mila had just signed the contract for water extraction.
The XL420, the XL420.
The XTR and the XL420 extractor.
Yep.
And so Eldon was sitting on the couch and he said, you know, a couple of 5-gallon bags, nylon bags with screen bottoms in a 5-gallon bucket, and you got yourself the same concept.
Right. And then
so at that point, Mark Rose looked at it and thought, it's isolating. It's the isolator. He came up with the name on the couch.
Right.
He then
guy on the couch, of course.
He developed those bags. He developed the original pyramid bag for the Isolator company. And, of course, now he is, you know, he was a lot of that, of those conceptualization, and he never really got his part in the history, but Mark and Eldon really developed the bags. Mila exclusively sold them. She never came up with the idea. She never invented them, nor did I. What I did was I copied, tried to make a little bit better, so it was, you know, a different product, and I didn't undercut her product. Mine was more expensive.
Yeah,
and then once I linked up with Mark Rose as my manufacturer, the original creator of the Isolator bags and the original manufacturer, we really got to put things. Once I got together with a guy like that, and it was like, let's start experimenting with the different numbers. I mean, Rob's been writing about these numbers for years. Let's see what we can produce with these different numbers. And people thought we were nuts.
Hold on
he's just trying to sell us 10 bags.
Hold on one second there. We got a caller. I'm just going to see who it is. Hello, caller. Welcome to the Adam Dunn Show. Who are we talking to?
Hey, Adam. This is So20 AD Normal.
Hey, what's going on, bro?
I was just listening to you guys talking about the resins topic. And, you know, I've been into both you guys for a long time. Definitely know who Bubble Man is. Have gone through many sets of bags in my years. And my comment for just as far as qualities about, you know, American, you know, hashes versus others, I agree with you completely, as our quality hasn't been fantastic by far. But, you know, we kind of talked about something about the Dutch flower times versus American in that last, I think, show or whatnot.
Yep.
And yeah, I think one of the things here that a lot of people don't do, or that could be done better, is just the maturation level, how far they take them to get them to those levels, instead of pushing for a 7 to 9 week harvest and then chopping, cropping, and being done within 4 to 5 days. If they just let it hang properly for a couple weeks and do the little subtle things that would just make it that much more proper before they extract, I think that would solve some huge issues.
Sure. Well, one of the things,
agreed.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of times I think is a misconception about hash production in general is the fact that it's like, you know, it's going to be trash and it's going to be turned into stash, and it's like going to be the worst. I'm going to take the worst product I have and I'm going to turn it into the best product in the world. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you can bring it up a couple notches. That's what I tell everybody. I'm like, you'll bring the quality up for sure. Like, you can have something that looks pretty scrappy and it can come out with some really great product, but technically speaking, usually when good-looking product produces good-looking, you know, just it's kind of par for the course. But one thing that's really interesting, what you were saying, and I think, is the fact that the plant, if you look at the trichomes under a scope or photos from Bubble Man, you'll notice that as they dry up, they break off perfectly on their own. They don't need any help from us hardly at all. And that's where you get, like, the minute you're pushing it hard or trying to get it off, or it's not quite there, then you're kind of defeating yourself. You know, it's best to let everything run its course, because technically the plant designs itself. It's just like when the leaf, if you try to, you know, pull a leaf the wrong way, it won't come off, you know, but the minute you pull it down the right direction, oh, look, it came off naturally. Yeah, it's just because that's the way they are. So don't fight it, you know what I mean? So I think that's part of the deal.
I would only add that in regards to what the caller was saying, that is very accurate, especially for dry sifting. Dry sifting is not a misnomer. We don't do it fresh. Drying it and allowing those gland heads to almost shrivel up a little bit like a raisin. Once you can see them shriveled like that, you're much easier to not only extract them but also clean the final material. With water hash, what we have now is a lot of people have figured out that if they use fresh frozen material, I guess resin that may not have melted or produced a melt factor prior to being done fresh frozen can produce a melt factor after because of the terpenes that are saved. However, once you get that hydrated wax membrane on the glandular trichome head that's so fresh and so moist, and you extract that using more water and ice, it becomes even trickier to properly dry it. And that's where I've always come in with, using a desiccant, allowing something to pull that moisture out. And of course, I've been ridiculed for my cardboard for years.
Well, that's a good point, and I think
that's interesting.
I think this is a good time for us to give Nikka T a call again and get him on this show because that's his specialty, and that's what he's really known for, is fresh frozen trim, and I think it's great, but I also think it's the classic Rob Clark story where, Rob always likes to emphasize that this stuff has to be stable and has to move on to the next person and the next person and the next person, and that's kind of where I feel that doesn't really work that well in that industry. For this industry, it's sort of
well, I want to try to bring some bubbles. I think last time I saw you, I brought extracts and some flowers, but I want to try to bring some just good bubble and dry sift. One thing I try to pride myself on is the actual flavors and aromas in the terp profile is actually transferring to the palate.
Hold on one sec. Is that Mr. Nikka T back?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So we have Bubble Man on, and we have my friend from AB Normal on also. He's call her in, but we'll let him hang in there.
Welcome, Nikka. I'll be done in a second. I was just going to say my end to that was, just that the dry curing process, even before the extraction happens, I think is so serious because it just seems to really, hinder the palate, the terp profiles, the whole 9 yards of it. Even, if they try to run something just hasn't hung long. And, the worst part of it is if it's a fast-grown plant and the resins just aren't even there quality-wise to even bring the proper terps out of the plant first.
Yeah,
so I think there's a lot of bad interpretations.
Leave all that for the solvents, right?
Because,
we'll leave all that for the solvents, all those immature glands and stuff. We can leave that for the solvent guys because they can get something out of nothing.
Exactly. Right.
We want the quality, right? We need to have, that's one of the, okay, so we were talking about fresh frozen here. That's one of the reasons I made sure we got you back up on here because it's more of a more modern technique when it comes to water hash. Water hash on its own is a modern technique, but even it's evolved in time. And one of the things was keep preserving that terp profile. So, Nikka, tell us a little bit about your technique and one of the reasons why you prefer fresh frozen, let's say, over dry trim.
I definitely wanted to touch on that variable because as we were mentioning about the trichome formation, all strains are different. And in that, all the trichome formations are different, depending on the strain, depending on the grower, depending on the medium. There's so many different variables when it comes to, extracting these trichomes. And we have found, recently, or in the last 10 years, that some of these strains, we're actually able to retain these terpenes and these oils better using a fresh frozen product. And that's a product that's immediately, when it's wet, it's big leafed and it's put in the freezer. All those trichomes and all those leaves are still wet.
Yes.
I agree with what you just said there, but I kind of got a theory about that too. But go ahead, Nick. I would get what you're saying completely. This is Faux 28 normal. Sorry to interrupt.
I think one of the reasons that the fresh frozen material, wasn't used as much back in the day is it is harder to remove that water from a fresh frozen extracted product. But I think if you master that technique of removing the water and breaking down the gland heads, onto parchment paper with your desiccant underneath, and you're able to remove that water quickly enough, I think that this fresh frozen process is really, taking over because we're able to get so much more of those oils and those terpenes that are originally in that product without letting any of those, temperature volatile terpenes get released into the air before it's processed.
What you think about that one there, Bubble Man?
Yeah, the first time I ever ran fresh frozen was in 2001 when I took the bubble bags to Jamaica for the first time. Prior to that, in the 90s, it was very hard to convince people to run whole plants, like we were talking about earlier, Adam.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people were able to even consider it.
Right.
But the first time I ran fresh frozen in Jamaica, which was really just whole plants right off the field, we just went into the field and we were like, can we buy some that aren't cut down yet? You know, and that way we can have more control. And like I said before, the strains, like Nikka T just mentioned, the volatile oils that are evaporating out, if you can save them, you'll produce a melty product and a product that may not have produced a melty product. Now, on the other hand, the original strain that I popularized bubble bags with was called Renee. And why Renee was so popular was because of these alcohol-soluble terpenes that did not wash out of the water. The hash smelt like the herb. And so that particular herb, for instance, the first time I ever saw it, it was in a pile, in trim, on my friend's grow room floor in a 150 light show. This was about 12 or 13 years ago. And I asked him what he was doing with it. He said nothing. So I took it home. This stuff had been on his floor for literally 3 months. Bone dry, almost powder. Well, I ran it, and I got stained glass windows, full melt Renee. So then you get this situation where it's like the caller who's on right now with us. He's saying, I like the idea of drying it, bringing those terps out. Certain strains, they can be, that's what I call the true fire. Those strains will produce fire whether it's bone dry or fresh frozen. The strains that don't produce fire when they're bone dry, for whatever reason, maybe their ratios of alcohol versus water-soluble terpenes is lower or higher. I don't know. I just know that those same strains, you dry them out and they don't produce that same level of melt. So why wouldn't we fresh frozen them? The only thing we need to pay attention is to seriously get that stuff dry properly. Now, this is an industry where how long are these people keeping this hash for? This is like people buy it a gram or two at a time and they use it within a week. I doubt many of these hashes that are being sold at these dispensaries are being saved the way a connoisseur might save one. I think they're being used medicinally by people almost instantly.
Yeah, and that's kind of where that's where the unknown part of it all comes in, and that's one of the things that I think as a to develop a hash culture, I think we need to learn how to make things that are stable enough that we can keep them for a while, because that's one of the nice things about pulling out a piece of 6 or 8 year old hash that actually has still got effect and still got taste and all of that. It's pretty huge.
I have a piece right here, Adam. I have a piece right here.
There you go. You see what I mean? It's
6.5 years old.
Awesome.
And that's one of those other variables, that I wanted to touch on is, that you have to properly dry these resins as well, especially if you want them to have a shelf life. Me and Bubble Man alike have seen this over and over again of people drying, trichomes or hash for 2 or 3 days and jarring it up and putting it on the shelf. And, it may look good for that first, 2 or 3 days or week, and it's strain dependent, obviously. But, some of these, artists that we're seeing are trapping some of that moisture in the hash, and then we're seeing this kind of buttering, appearance to the hash, which is basically the water trying to escape. So that's definitely, one of the important things as well. Obviously, that both I think me and Bubble Man agree with is properly dried resins will retain those terpenes better and keep that longer shelf life as well.
100%.
Hey, I got a quick input real quick. This is 420 again on the terps, kind of coming across in the quality of the fresh resins. I agree with that to a degree. What I've found over the years is, let's take an indica, which I think Renee was like a Kush-based indica dominant to begin with. What I learned is when I'm a minimalist, so I feed very low. And sometimes when my plants finish, they finish very thin. Like they're yellow, they're done, the buds are lime, there's no deep greens to begin with. It's what we call almost curing on the vine. Now, what I've noticed is when you take a very rich-needing Kush plant and you underfeed it and leach it to that degree on a good run, I've noticed that actually, like, let's say a Kush tone will disappear and you'll get more of like a ginger to a floral tone. And, this works actually, it's even more of an intense, diverse, ending when it's on a Kush or let's just say an indica, because there's a lot of strong profiles on those as far as richness, how deep they can really taste. And when I've taken, let's say, that the same Kush, but done it very rich, and it's came out very resinous and just really on point, but a little bit, let's say, dark at the end. Not, let's say, starved, but just rich, right on point. Very wonderful ripeness. Now, when this is given the chance to cure and done its thing and hang for weeks, and then trim properly, and then remove properly, and then given time to dry and all that, every part of it transfers. The smell, the profile, the flavor, the effect. And that's kind of where I go back to that maturation and knowing the variety itself before it's even touched.
Yeah,
and that'll give you like a super jump even to matching what you're smelling on the plant before it's extracted. Sativas are another thing because we do want them leached, and it's easy to overfeed them and have them, very green and whatever on the end. But, it's possible to overleach. Let's just say that. It's possible to literally remove some of those terps if you're not understanding the maturations and the way that they can actually hold all those properties.
Yeah, one of the things about cannabis in general and resin is just sort of like a fractal. It's almost like it keeps getting. It's like you're looking at the same plant smaller, especially when you look at a small bud, and you know the plant really well. It's like it's just a small version of the other bud. It's just like a fractal, and But what you notice is that it has like a memory. So when you're drying, if you trap it, like if you jar something up too quick, it's stuck there. You know what I mean? Like you'll never really get it to that optimal level. So it is important. I would rather over dry something and then bring it back a tiny bit than ever trap moisture. Right. And I think it's really important on resin, and people just don't get it sometimes. And they, especially with water hash, they want to get all those terps and get it. But the only way to get the terps is to trap the water. So you're kind of like in a no-win long-term situation.
And let it release as slowly as possible. I mean, when I was taught, I'm 46. I'm not old and I'm not young, but the guys that taught me were like, when you take it down, you don't touch it until you can pull the bud away from the stalk and it snaps.
Yeah.
Okay. They're actually the people that taught me didn't let me remove buds from stalks until the stalk went pale, not the bud.
Right.
They actually watched the stalk. When the stalk went brittle, you're good to go. And then you could rehydrate the bud. You could keep it at that proper humidor moisture. You could do whatever you want, but it was ready to go.
Sure.
It was proper, up and down. But we're talking a month after it had been chopped.
What do you think about that? What do you think about all that up there in the Northwest with your moisture levels and stuff? How does it work for you, Bubble Man? Because we're totally different.
We still have, I do know some old school growers that does the same thing. They're able to hang and they're able to, get the plant snapped. That involves cooling the temperature down in the summer, obviously, and removing the humidity. In the winter, it's much easier, especially out east. It gets so cold, the humidity gets sucked right out of the air, and you're left with quite a dry.
Like here, yeah.
Exactly like there. That's why we get the fires every year right above you guys. The Kootenays, British Columbia. It just burns every year. It's like California wildfires, right? It's just. But over here where we are, a little further over on the coast with the humidity, it's literally why, since day one, I was never able to get the resin dry without the help of a desiccant. And for me, like, the people were like, a desiccant, isn't that like a plastic? I'm like, yeah, I won't use that. So that's why, that and the fact that I learned about what was available to me, that's why we came up with, cardboard. Cardboard will suck the moisture out of it, and it won't leave. I know Nick is cringing right now, but I do use the parchment on top of the cardboard now. I've moved forward.
You know what? What was a little.
That's the beauty of it. We're all learning every day, especially with the advent.
Oldest trick I've ever heard is put a candle in the room.
Well, there you go.
Sucks.
I shit you not. Oldest trick I've heard. Matter of fact, Adam, you even know who told me this trick.
No.
Old 30 guy. But I tell you what, just setting a candle in the room to remove the moisture.
That's
so simple.
Tiny
so
amount.
Simple.
Interesting. Well, you know what? Now we're at a time where we're all finally listening to one another. We're all finally realizing, this isn't a competition. Jah made enough for everyone. We're all in this together, and this is our community. So why not, move it forward the best that we can?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Big time.
Yeah,
definitely. And as I was mentioning, with these new strains coming into an industry that's more heavily regulated, and we're able to test these strains, terpene, analysis, and THC content analysis. We're finding different variables to process these different strains. So like I was mentioning, I think we're all learning every single day, and that's one of the beauties of this art form is we process different material differently each and every time. And every time we're getting new strains coming into the market. And so those new strains have different trichome formations. We scope all those strains before we process them, and we process them differently. So there's always something to learn. And that's definitely one of the beauties of this art.
Oh, yeah. And not only that, just just watching the qualities of the product and also the knowledge of the product that we're actually able to get deeper and deeper into this. And it's quite magic times right now, I'd have to say, because what I was always kind of blows my mind is that I remember not too long ago they had like headlines where they didn't even just figuring out where cannabis actually works, how it works, and now it's like that was less than 10 years ago, I believe, and it was like we're so much further along now, but at the same time, a year from now, we're going to look back and be like, again, like, oof, we're.
You're 100% right, because all of what we're doing ties into the endocannabinoid system that regulates all biological function in our body, and that happens to be regulated by phytocannabinoids, which happen to be exclusive to cannabis.
Exactly.
Hell yeah.
So Danny Danko just said that
when we learn that those resin glands, all of the CBD, CBG, CBN, all of the cannabinoids that we love are produced out of phenols and terpenes. That's how they're produced. They're produced inside of organelles, inside of plastids and vacuoles, and they are produced through terpenes. So it's amazing that we're coming to this point after so many years of it being about this leaf. Everyone puts the leaf on their shirt. It's all about the leaf. Well, now, what's it all about?
Yeah, the trichome.
It's all about the terps.
Yeah, even the terps on top.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still a big fan of the flower and the leaf. This is so funny. I love resins, don't get me wrong. Right.
I can't get my pizza delivered without the box. I appreciate the box.
True. And see, I just believe that there's a lot more to it than the box. I believe the box has a lot more proproperties.
Well,
than
there is. There's
giving
50,000 commercial uses that the box does. The box produces
True.
oil that is rich in amino acids. You know what I mean?
You bet.
And listen. When you make seed oil from cannabis, do you use the cellulose or the fiber? Of course not. You take the one from the whole. When you extract the seed from like hemp oil, you take the one from the whole. When we need to make clothing, do you use the cellulose or the seed oil? No, you take the fiber.
Sure.
This is a plant that gives us an enormous amount of things, but when it comes to cannabis, the smoking of it, we've missed the boat in the sense that we think we need the whole plant, whereas why is it always the one from the whole with every other aspect of the plant?
Yeah, but at the same time, we do understand this whole entourage effect too, though. So it's actually a bunch of bits together equal. So we do like whole plant extraction is that's one thing I like about water hash and dry sieve compared to solvents is that I feel like that whole plant experience is noticeable. You know what I mean? Like you get
still there, right?
Yeah, you get that happy. It's like the happy the happy side of it.
Analog versus digital. The analog is your good bubble, and the digital is
it's like your sound quality back in the day. Tubes.
That's almost what it tastes like.
Yeah. Tubes versus electronics and things like that when it comes to sound. Also,
exactly. You got it exactly.
I still prefer the quiver over only one.
Yeah. No, for sure, and as many angles as possible. Well, anyway, Danny Danko, if it's the real Danny Danko, I'm not even sure, but it says Danny Danko says methane extraction is the new thing, cow fart dabs. So there you go. I think that's our new angle. We now know methane extraction. Now, I don't think that's actually it.
Oh, no. Yeah. And I don't know, but somebody over the last cup or whatever, somebody turned us on to even a propane extraction.
Oh, propane's been.
That was not. I wasn't. I'm not sure.
It's real weird. It kind of comes out more orange. I mean, there's propane in...
Most butane contains 11% propane.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say, vector and all these.
We do try to avoid that. Wherever. That's the thing with you guys.
Sometimes you need, if you're talking solvents anyways, sometimes you need that propane to pull the different profiles that you're looking for.
Yeah, otherwise you don't get all of them out.
If you just use straight, butane, you're pulling different profiles. But let's talk about mechanical separation.
Right. I think with you guys, I think the scene was moving. This is 420 again. The scene was moving so fast, and everybody was so into flowers there for a while that this extraction thing has actually got it to slow down. And now I'm not saying you guys are older guys. What I'm going to say is you guys are the most experienced in the field. Okay, whether people want to bend down to it or not, and I don't put myself in the category, but when it comes to just certain topics, and this is one that I'm very familiar with, I'll sit there and go all day with you. But you guys are the ones that are still going to come back to and be like, so why does it work like that? And I'm just glad it's slowing down and the attention is being paid to the topic to that degree.
Yeah,
and you guys are going to make it go to the level it can go and bring it back to the level it was.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what I'm waiting for.
We're finally at that level where I think every grower loves to be, is like, you know, when you get to the point where you finally can just stop and you built the whole room, it's all there, and now you just sort of finally get to tweak a few dials and change a few things and see results because you're spent your whole time building these things, and that's like when you don't pay attention during that as much because you're just trying to get it all going, you know. And now I think the whole industry is like that right now. We're at this point where now everybody's got a chance to sort of deal with their one thing deal with the one thing that they're specializing in, you know, whether it's now the testing abilities of Terpene Pro, because, you know, we couldn't even test for terps before. Now we have ability to test for, you know, 9 different terpenes.
We don't even have a clue how many there are. I was speaking with Kay from Trichome Technologies. He's convinced there's at least 200. He says most scientists think there's just over 100.
Yeah, exactly. And we're testing for 9 right now. We're testing for 9 right now. So
it was 64, and then it was exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, I'm out of here, guys. Too cool talking to you guys. Finish the show up. I'm out. This is so. Y'all be cool.
Thank you, sir.
Blessings.
I would only also add that while we're talking about terpenes, I would add that we found and finding that these terpenes are important modulators related to how they give us the medicinal aspects that they give us. And I think that's why it has a lot to do with how we process the plant, letting terpenes evaporate out, freezing them fresh frozen. Leaving terpenes and taking terpenes out will affect the end result of the medicine.
Oh, for sure. And
not necessarily a better way either way, because it's all different. Someone might prefer one over the other for an ailment that they're suffering from.
And
100%. We're finding terpenes now that will extend the duration of a high. We're finding terpenes that will actually make a high heavier. And it's going to be all kinds of different things. Just the same way that the analogy goes with you cracking into an orange. Generally speaking, it would make people happier. It'll put a smile on your face when you smell that citrus terpene. The same goes with cannabis. Certain terpenes are going to make you feel a certain way.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And not only just by themselves, but literally they modulate other cannabinoids that might not give pure THC, for instance. And this was in regards to a discussion I had with Skunkman Sam some years ago, in regards to just ordering up pure terpenes, pure cannabinoids, pure THC. You can order these from the lab in Holland. And he was saying, hitting the pure THC by itself, completely boring, couch lock, lameness, add a single terpene, and all of a sudden it starts getting a little more rounded. And that's a single terpene out of potentially hundreds.
Yeah, I remember that discussion too. And even with the CBD, that was I think the beginning of the whole CBD has to have, they were trying to figure out the amounts, and it was literally just self-dosing, 1-to-1, 1-to-2,
Yep, exactly. That's what it was. It was
they're synergistic.
bioactive.
They need each other.
And that's what I think that's kind of where it all seems to be directing everybody towards right now, is that those seems to be the keys to unlocking a lot of stuff, is the terpenes and the flavonoids and the terpenoids and things like that are now being recognized much more important. And amazingly, it takes so much to produce such a little amount too. It's amazing. When you actually see how much you get out of a pound of cannabis is very little. It's sometimes barely enough to fit into a vial or something,
Oh yeah, I call it the lifting the veil of the prohibition-based mentality. They always ask, "Well, will it be worth it?" What does that mean? You mean if taking off the resin, that the reason you bought the herb in the first place, taking it all off and concentrating it and creating an unadulterated cannabinoid profile, is that worth it? I think so.
Yeah, and what do you think about this whole? I mean, we're gonna have to actually wrap it up soon because we're already rolling over time a few minutes. But what do you think about removing removing the terps and then putting them back at the suggested ratios to replicate, for instance, a Granddaddy Purps or a Sour Diesel or a King's Kush or whatever after analysis and having all that information in front of you, just putting those terps back into a neutral sort of base, which is what is happening in California right now. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that there's an enormous amount to learn from it now. I had this exact conversation with Kay from Trichome Technologies just a few days ago, and he was talking about the ability to reproduce, take apart a plant and reproduce it and build it and add terpenes and change flavors and modulate things differently.
Yeah.
The idea is incredible and amazing at the same time. I guess I'm a little bit of my belief system is that we don't completely understand how these things work. We've learned a lot. But every 10 years, we learn so much more that it changes the whole game as we get in deeper and deeper and deeper. So I'm not sure if when we extract those things that we'll be playing with underlining, I don't even know how to explain it. I don't know for sure if we'll be doing exactly what we think we'll be doing. I think there's other things going on there that when we extract those away, if there are things that we can't perceive or that we haven't figured out yet, we might be affecting those things and their relationships and their synergies. But there's going to be a lot to learn about. That's how we're going to learn, doing exactly what you just said, taking this resin profile apart, splitting it up and trying to put it back together to create these synergistic effects.
Right.
And I don't know if we're going to be able to do it with what we have now, or if we're going to need to get our science even deeper into what's going on for us to understand how we can do this.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think that it's kind of unnecessary, but at the same time, I also know how industries work, and like one of the examples we use is like the orange juice industry. You know, there's none of these big companies are hand squeezing into every single jug a different run. It's all put into one giant run, which then the sweetness is detected on a computer, and then they add back in the right amount of terpenes that they'll pull off of the oranges in the first place, and then they'll get it to exactly the right level and then put it out of the market. You know what I mean? So in a way, I kind of see that being the way it may go, strictly because of them not being able to produce enough of one strain, but being able to produce a very simple neutral strain, you know what I mean, that grows massive and doesn't taste like anything really, and then using that as your vehicle and, running that through.
That's funny you bring up the orange juice analogy, though, because I almost, want to bring up the analogy of comparing these natural terpenes that we're collecting, in this mechanical separation compared to, re-adding terpenes back in. I think, the analogy is like orange juice to orange soda or something like that. There's always going to be the people that want the orange juice, and then, there'll be a lot of the people that
orange drink. They want the orange drink.
We're
like, no, you don't want the orange drink. You want the orange juice, and you don't even want the orange juice that's all reconstituted. You want the real orange juice. But
what? We talked about this recently in a meeting I had in Toronto a couple of days ago, in regards to the future of medical cannabis, or here in Canada, we've got all these people trying to grow greenhouse, indoor, the whole 9 yards. And then we've got other people who are from countries that can grow cannabis with tropical grown sun. And so they're looking, Canada has importation licenses, so we can import resin from Jamaica, or we can import from Thailand, or we can import from any country that produces licensing and allows for it to happen in that country. So those resins will be the orange juice compared to the orange sodas that we're producing up in our indoor grows up here, because we just can't compete with that tropical sun-grown resin.
Yes, we can't. So, on that note,
I wish we could.
On that note, we're gonna have to stop this one because could go on forever. Because we already knew that once we tap into this subject, I mean, there's too many things to talk about. But I'm glad we could touch on a few things, especially the fresh frozen, since that was obviously the idea with bringing Nick on board, because we need to know why everyone's going nuts over fresh frozen, and also from Bubble Man. And, I have to say, Mark, I didn't call you Bubble Boy once on the show all day. How do you like that?
I know. What the heck, man? Come on.
I knew people were like, are you going to call him that? He's going to get so mad. And I was like, well.
No, you're the only person in the world that can call me Bubble Boy, and I don't take offense to it.
There you go. That's all I needed to hear on this air was that confirmation. So then everyone knows they're not allowed to say it. But I, on the other hand.
Exactly. It's an Adam Dunn exclusive.
There you go. Thank you very much, guys, for being on the air. And I'm sure, when we can get Rob on, hey, Mark, whenever you're just chatting with Rob, if you have a moment and you think he's going to be available on any given Wednesday, let's pull him on here. Special guest.
Yeah,
again. I had him on
sent him
before,
an
but we just
email.
argued the
I
whole
sent him an
time.
email.
So we kind of argued a lot. So it was I like that because he's
I'd love to get on for that
people
one
want to
too.
hear.
he's a big whiner sometimes. That Rob Clark, you know how he gets very pessimistic. Everything's it's over, dude. It's over. He told me this whole industry was over at least 10 times in our careers together. It's over. It's done. Forget about it.
Much love to you guys.
Thank you
so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Nikka, and keep an eye out for all the Essential Extracts products all over Colorado, and soon worldwide, I would think, right? Taking over?
Working on it every day.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what we do.
We just want to spread quality. This has never been about, the money. We're just about the passion. And, the same goes with, comparing mechanical separated water hash to, butane separation. We're about quality and spreading this quality throughout the world.
There you go. All right, guys. See you soon. That's for sure.
Awesome, guys. Have a good one. Bless.
All right. Thanks. So we're going to wrap it up for this week. I'm going to just give another quick shout out to my two biggest sponsors, Way to Grow, 6 locations all over the state, and to Incredibles, over 400 shops carrying their products. I have to get a definitive number at one point, but I know they're everywhere. So best edibles in the universe, and definitely in Colorado. It's been voted by Westward this year. And shout out to all my people out there. Marky B helped me out with all my graphic stuff out there, trying to make that happen. We got people out in Amsterdam listening to us from our original crew out there, the Hoodlam crew. Too many to mention. Danny Danko, thanks for listening. And Aqua Labs waiting for that bong. It's coming, I know. I shouldn't call it a bong. I'm sure it's a rig. Better be a rig. So, and to the other, potential sponsors out there, get to us. Thanks. Bye.